وإذا حدا عنده إذا حدا عنده مشكلة بليز خبرونا. اوكي سو نرجع للرود اجين. هي مفروض انه الريسك opportunity assessment اجين لحظة اتذكرها.
إذا فيك تفرجينا يمكن أول exactly بس
Yes.
على السريع.
نحن بالاساس بدنا نعمل زي رود ماب تقدر توضح لنا شو هي الظروف اللي بتؤدي بالشخص انه ينتقل من بلده او ياخذ قرار الهجرة، شو الدوافع اللي بتدفعه انه ياخذ هذا القرار، وبالنهاية بتحفزه انه فعلا يعني يمشي في المسألة، وشو بصير معه على الطريق وشو بصير فيه لما بيوصل على البلد. بالنهاية بدنا نحاول نفهم إنه هل هذا الشيء يعني بغض النظر عن منظومة القوانين والتشريعات الموجودة والأطر الرسمية، بدنا نحاول نفهم شو عم بيصير على أرض الواقع من التجربة العملية.
So we want to know everything about the migration process. When a person takes a decision to leave his country and go to another country, what triggers him? What's his motives? Does he know about the risks that accompany this decision? We, of course, apart from the legislations and the legal framework of the situation and of the migration, we want to know what's going on the ground, what's happening step by step.
وطبيعي لما بنحكي عن وجود مشكلة على مستوى القطاع كامل أو على مستوى الاقتصاد كامل في دولة ما، هذا له تبعات على سياسة الدولة في التعامل مع هاي التحديات.
And of course, when a person faces a problem, this will have repercussions on the country itself.
On the policies of the country. يعني لما بندرس مسائل التعاطي مع أو لنفترض أي تحدي موجود عندنا بالاقتصاد، في عدة خيارات سياساتية ممكن إنها الدولة تاخدها. بالتالي إحنا بهمنا نعرف لأي سياسة نعطي الأولوية.
So this is why usually the state will take a series of policies, and we need to know which policies should be given priority.
So تعرفنا على بعض. I think يعني مجموعات، يعني أنا سعيدة إنه معنا ممثلين عن الوزارة، معنا ممثلين عن منظمة العمل، عن الصحافة والمجتمع المدني. بخصوص
برنامج we were introduced to each other and we have representatives from the ministry, from the ILO and from the NGOs and from the media.
بالضبط. نحن الأجندة بعثناها للجميع، هي تقريبا نفس المعلومات الموجودة هون، ورح نحاول يعني our promise إنه نلتزم بالوقت حتى نخلص بدري.
So this is the agenda that we have sent to everyone and we'll try our best to finish on time.
هلا أنا يعني الفكرة بشكل عام رح نقسم هلا حالنا إلى مجموعات، هو كلياته شغل أكثر من إنه سرد أو بدنا نقول جانب نظري، لكن بدي أعطي المجال لزميلي داود إبراهيم من لبنان ليعطينا شوي شرح يعني كيف رح نشتغل على المجموعة.
So now we're going to divide ourselves into groups to be able to work together because it's going to be group work, and I would like to give the floor to Dawood Ibrahim, our colleague from Lebanon, to explain to us what are we going to do in these groups.
هلا قبل ما أعطي المجال لداود بدي أوضح بس الفكرة، يعني بشكل عام الفكرة تبع رود، يعني إيش بالضبط رح يكون الشغل في الورش. بشكل عام نحن لما في عنا حدث معين بدنا ندرسه، بهاي الحالة اللي هو المخاطرة اللي بتتعرض لها النساء في تنقلهم إلى الأردن لغايات العمل، في دوافع وحوافز وعوامل خطر وعواقب للموضوع. مهمتنا يعني بمجموعات العمل إن نلقي الضوء بالتفصيل على هاي الأمور كدوافع أو محفزات أو عواقب.
Of course, we want to shed the light on the repercussions, on the vulnerabilities that the women face when they take the decision of migration.
So the triggers and the motives, drivers وهيك. هلا التعريفات موجودة again، يعني أنا بعرف إنه في تشابه كتير ما بين التعريفات، ولكن فقط بشكل سريع يعني حتى نقدر نحدد بالتفصيل إيش هن المؤثرات على الحدث أو على تنقل العاملات. في عنا الإيفنت، الريسك أو الإيفنت اللي بدنا ندرسه بالتحديد، اللي هو المخاطرات اللي بتتعرض لها العاملات لما بينتقلوا للأردن.
We want to study the risks that the workers face when they move to Jordan.
التريجرز اللي هو اللي السبب المباشر اللي بخليهم يسافروا واللي بخليهم يتعرضوا لهاي المخاطرات.
The triggers, which is the direct reason why they are traveling, what make them travel, and what put them in this situation.
الدرايفر يعني ما هو الدافع وراء هذا القرار للسفر، وبالتالي يعني قبول مسألة التعرض للخطر.
What is the driver behind this decision? What is the driver that's causing them taking this risk?
والعواقب النهائية، الكونسيكونسز اللي بتنجم عن وجود هذا الخطر في عبر سلاسل السفر أو حتى عند الوصول إلى بلد الوجهة.
And the consequences of these risk events when they take the decision of traveling or when they arrive to the country.
هلا لما نيجي بدنا نحاول نفهم تفصيلات كل وحدة، نيجي هون ما بعرف ببين عندكم على السكرين اللي هو هذا اسمه نماذج السببية، إنه شو بيسبب شو بيسبب شو، لحتى نوصل بالنهاية تنفهم كل السلسلة، ونحاول بعدين نقدر نقطعها ونعمل تدخلاتنا بالمكان الصح وبالوقت الصح عبر السلسلة.
So now we're going to see the different models, the causal models, and we're going to identify where we are going to intervene and what are the mitigant interventions.
فهلا أول مجموعة، هلا I think بدي أترك المجال لداود يحكي لنا أكثر عن تطبيق نيورال وعن تقسيمنا للمجموعات حتى نبني أول causal model.
Now we're going to give the floor to Mr. Dawood to talk about these models.
اوكي، شكرا عليا، شكرا رانيا. بليز بس ممكن نوقف الشيرينج يور سكرين عليا. اوكي. بعض الوجوه الموجودة انه شاركت معنا المرة الماضية بالتدريب، فعندها فكرة عن التطبيق اللي حنشتغل عليه، بس في عنا وجوه جديدة. شاركت بالتشات لينك، ففيكم تفوتوا عليه. هذا التطبيق اللي حيكون شغلنا الأساسي عليه لنقدر لاحقا ناخد الداتا نستعملها بشكل نقدر نطلع كل المعلومات اللي بدنا إياها. أنا شاركت السكرين، بس أنتم بدكم تشتغلوا على هذا الشيء من خلال الكمبيوترز تبعكم، يعني فوتوا من اللينك من خلال الكمبيوتر مش اللي شايفينه على السكرين، لأنه الشاشة هيدي نحن بنشوف شو عم تعملوا بس ما فيكم تشتغلوا عليها من هون. الهدف من هذا التمرين الصغير
So I have
السريع.
shared the link. Please press on it to be able to access the mural. Of course, some of you were with us in the first workshop and knows what I'm talking about, but some others are new. So please, you have to press on this link to be able to work with us. We can see what you're doing, of course, here. So please press on the link.
شايفين الوجوه الموجودة. الهدف أنه نقدر نتفاعل بطريقة هيك سريعة مع هذا التطبيق. فيكم تشيلوا الوجوه اللي بدكم إياها، الإيموجي اللي بدكم إياه، وتحطوه بالسيركل بالدائرة تبع مزاجكم، يعني شو المزاج تبعكم ممكن كل واحد ينقي ويحطها.
You can see those emoji faces on the right. You can choose according to your mood whatever emoji you want and put it in this circle.
في حدا نعسان؟
أنا حضرتنا.
Someone is sleeping.
اوكي، في كل حدا يختار وحده بس تحديدا
في
او
حدا
اكثر، فيكم تختاروا اكثر، يعني عندنا كميه، فبس الهدف انه فعلا نصير فاميليار مع هذا التطبيق، نصير نعرف نستخدمه انه بسهوله.
So we're doing this exercise to become more familiar with this app. So please, you can choose any emoji or even more than one.
اوكي.
بعض المشاركات محدوده. حدا عم بلاقي صعوبه بالموضوع؟ الكل دخلوا، عندي انا صار في عدد جيد، بس شو
Were you
العدد
able
الكافي؟
to access this app? Anyone is facing any problem?
إذا معلش تجربوها عشان نتأكد إنه عندكم شغالة، يعني
وإذا
يبدو
بدكم
في
تحطوا أساميكم كمان هيك
يس.
فينا نشوف بعض. أم إيه، عليا، سوسن،
So
ريد.
please try it to know that it's working from your side, and if you can write your names, of course, to be able to know ourselves.
لا انا في عندي بس 8 اشخاص يعني على هيدا الشيء
I
يعني.
can
في
see
أشخاص بعد
only 8
ما
people have joined the link.
مم.
حدا عم
هلا
بيواجه
بلشنا.
مشكل شيء؟
أنا مبين إنه أمور ماشية تمام عندي.
رانيا عم بتقول إنه عندها مشكلة.
وأنا عندي
وسهى
مشكلة، بس
والسهى
هنا عندي مشكلة إنترنت. أنا شبكة ما في عنا شبكة كافية إنه يفتح،
اوكي.
فهنا عم نستنى.
انا اخي داوود بتعرف على التلفون ما بقدر استخدمه يعني.
ولا يهمك، ولا يهمك.
طيب.
هلا هي بالنتيجه مشاركتك عم
و-
بتكون بقصص تانية جيده جدا.
كل احترام.
يزن
شكرا.
برضو عم بقول عم بنزل التطبيق.
شوفي السكرين، يعني حتى لو مش قادرة تشاركي قادرة تشوفي السكرين.
عم بشوفها. يس.
اوكي يزن، انت منك بحاجه تنزل التطبيق، فيك تشتغل عليه من البراوزر تبعك، بس if you wanna download it it's okay.
طيب.
اوكي.
اوكي، فينا ننتقل للي براها.
طيب خلونا نشوف شيء تاني بس لتشتغلوا، لأنه الشغل حيكون بإطار how to test sticky notes. أوكي، خليكن معنا وحنجرب على شيء تاني اللي هو هون. أوكي، أخذكم لعندي.
So stay with us because we're going to test on sticky notes now.
اوكي، هيدا التطبيق بيتيح لنا اذا بدكم على الشمال انه في عندكم اوبشنز، صوره، فريم وركس، ايكونز. نحن بدنا نشتغل على ستيكي نوتس تكست، يعني بكبس على التكست، بختار ستيكي نوت القياس اللي بدي اياه او الشكل اللي بدي اياه وبحطها وبعمل التكست اللي بختاره، لانه لاحقا حنبلش نعبي الفورم اللي عرضته علينا عليا. فهيك لنقدر ناخذ اسماء القصص او التسميات تبع الصعوبات او الدوافع او غيره.
So here you can see the sticky notes. You can choose the shape and the color you want, and we can add the text in it, of course, because later on we're going to fill it with the exercise that Alia has given to us.
اوكي، سو هلا هون فينا نحط ستيكد نوتس.
وفيكم مثل ما شايفين تعملوا تكبروا القياس اللي بدكم اياه للستيكي قد ما بدكم، انتم بتقدروا تتحكموا بهذا الشيء.
Can also change the size of the sticky note.
اوكي. تمام.
يزن مشي الحال. الشيء اللي حيصير هلا لما بنبلش نشتغل بكل ناس بمجموعه، اذا حدا كان عنده مشكل ممكن يطلب من زميله انه يحط تكست عنه او يحط كلمه، يعني ممكن يكون الموضوع خاضع للنقاش بالمجموعات.
If anyone cannot work on it, he can ask his colleague to write down the message or the info or the idea in the sticky notes and post it for him or on his behalf.
Okay. I hope إنها شغالة عند الكل. I can see محمد بس
يظن
دكتورة
انه
تغريد
هلا خلص داونلود مثل ما عم بيقول، بتخيل عم يعمل لوج ان.
دكتور تغريد ما بعرف ماشي عندك أمور تمام؟ ما بعرف إذا سمعتنا دكتورة تغريد.
هلا هو يمكن تطبيق الجديد بالنسبه للبعض، بس الاكيد انه ممكن تستفيدوا منه لاحقا بشغلكم، خاصه انه اغلب شغلنا عم بيكون اونلاين مؤخرا. اوكي طيب تمام. طول لانه هلا كمان ممكن يختبروا اكثر خلال العمل بالمجموعات، صحيح عليا؟
exactly.
اوكي طيب. اللي حنشاركه معكم هو الروابط هلا لكل مجموعه من المجموعات،
So we're
وسوسن
going to share the links for every group.
and سوسن انه راح تقسمكم ضمن هيدي المجموعات، وكل مجموعه حتشتغل على رابط من الروابط، وحكون معكم انا خلال العمل على هيدا الموضوع. خلوني اوقف شير سكرين لفرجيكم بالاول الشغل على اي فورم حيصير. اوكي اوكي. هيدا شاركت رابط للمجموعة الأولى، وحشارك رابط للمجموعة الثانية. هلا قبل ما تعملوا كليك عليهم سوسن ترجع بتوزعكم على أساسهم. بس
I have shared the links and Sausan will distribute or will send us into different working groups.
طيب شكرا. هلا رح يمكن نقسم مجموعتين، مجموعة بالعربي ومجموعة بالإنجليزي.
بس سوسن قبل ما نوزعهم هلا، بس لفرجيهم على الشكل. اوكي بس انا ليكون كل شيء موجود. اوكي بس وساعتها بينطلقوا على العمل تبعهم. بس let me share my screen now.
بس لو بتكتب داود لو سمحت، إذا بتكتب جروب 1 جروب 2 جنب اللينك.
اوكي يلا هلا بحطها. هلا المجموعه الرابط الاول اللي شاركته هو للمجموعه الاولى، الرابط الثاني للمجموعه الثانيه. بس انا اللي بدي اياه فرجيهم بس على الشيء اللي حنكون عم نشتغل عليه، اللي هو مثل ما شايفين هون قدامكم على السكرين. هلا يو كان انه شايفين السكرين تبعي. اوكي. الدرايفر اللي هو الموتيف، الدافع الاساسي للعاملات ليهاجروا، مثلا انه دي الفرص العمل، الوضع الامني، ما بعرف الوضع الاقتصادي. المحفز لنفترض انه هن بيفكروا يمكن يطلعوا مصاري اكثر او عمله اجنبيه او غيره. هيدا ممكن ساعتها ضمن الخيارات اللي نحطها تحت التريجر. تحت كل وحده من هول فينا نوزع ستاكس مثل ما قلت، ستيكي نوتس. حطوا دوافع قد ما بدكم، حطوا تريجرز قد ما بدكم تحت التريجر.
داود لازم تكون بنفس اللون حتى ما
هلا الافضل لنقدر نشوفها، بس بعدين اذا ضلوا ضمن اطار هيدا القالب مش مشكل. بس هو فيهم يختاروا التكست بحسب ستيكي نوتس، يعني الالوان هي واضحه. صار يمكن رانيا بدها تترجم.
So you can choose the sticky notes here with different colors and write down, for example, in the trigger, what triggered them to leave, what's their motive. For example, their motive is to earn money in the other country, so you can put it here on their trigger.
اوكي. فنفس الشيء نحن اتفقنا انه عندنا ريسك ايفنت محدد اللي هو عامل الخطر، اللي هو الاشياء اللي ممكن تتعرض له العاملات او الصعوبات او الاشياء اللي على الطريق، اللي هو ريسك ايفنت موحد. العواقب انه او النتائج او الكونسيكونسز اللي بيتعرضوا لها هو تحت هيدا كمان بنحط شو هي النتائج اللي عم يتعرضوا لها بالاخر او اللي عم بيسببها هيدا المخاطر اللي عم ياخذوها.
Of course, the risk event is all the risks that they might face on their journey, and the consequences of these risks, what will happen to them when they want to take this risk.
فهلا كل مجموعه حتشتغل لوحدها على هيدول، لاحقا الخطوه اللي من بعدها بنرجع بنشرح لكم اياها. هيدي بس مبدئيا الشيء اللي حنركز عليه بهيدا باول ستيب، باول خطوه.
طيب
Of course, this is everything for now. We're going to work on the first part, and later on we will explain the second part.
إذا حدا عنده شيء إنه نسيه أو بده يستوضحه ليعرف الستبس اللي حكينا عنها أو الكونتنت اللي حكينا عنها، on the right you can see أوكي التعريفات والقصص اللي كنا عم نحكي عنها كخطوة. الخطوة الأولى تحديد الدوافع، الحوافز، عامل الخطر والعواقب.
So here you can see the first step, the risk factor, the motives or triggers, and the consequences, as well as the impact or the effect.
اوكي، فاذا ما في اسئله وانا حكون معكم ضمن اطار المجموعتين، حطل على كل مجموعه اي سؤال اي مساعده ممكن تكون، فانا حكون جاهز. سوسن بشكرك، فبتخيل اطلب منك حاليا توزعيهم على مجموعات اذا ما في اي اسئله، واذا في اسئله ضمن المجموعات ممكن نجاوب عليها.
بس
If you have any questions,
أنوه.
you can ask them, or I'll be visiting you in different groups so that you will ask your questions if you have any.
بس أول شيء يزن طلب إنه نبعث اللينك مرة تانية للجروب.
Yes, I'm gonna do it.
وكمان بس حتى أخبر الكل إنه الجلسة هاي رح نعملها 45 minutes. المفروض إنه تعطي وقت كافي للجميع إنه يناقش إيش الدوافع والمحفزات. على 11:30 نرجع نجتمع بالجلسة أو باللوبي يعني تبع الزوم.
So the session will be for 45 minutes to be able to have the adequate time to discuss everything, and we will meet again at 11:30.
Can you please translate into English?
Rania, would you
Yes, translate
please...
what? I translated. We're going to meet, this session will be for 45 minutes, and we will meet again at 11:30.
Sausan will divide us into 2 groups now, Sunita.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to divide the groups by language, and we'll follow. رح أعمل مجموعتين حسب اللغة. Okay, so Mr. Faiz, أستاذ فايز بالعربي, Miss Sunita English group, and with Miss Sunita there will be Rafiq and Natasha in the English group. Miss Mirvat will be in Arabic. Mr. Abdul Jawad, Better Work Jordan in Arabic. Mr. Muhammad Al-Maaita English. Ms. Suha Labadi English. And I want to ask إذا ممكن يزن، أستاذ يزن بتحب عربي أو إنجليزي؟
عربي.
عربي. أوكي.
أستاذ رانيا ممكن معنا رانيا سرايرة عربي.
رانيا سرايرة عربي. أوكي. وبدل مس تغريد عودة إنجليزي أو عربي، شو بتفضلي؟ موجودة؟
هي المفروض
ممكن نحطها بالإنجليزي لأنه صار عدد أكبر بالعربي. ولا بتفضل مس تغريد عودة بتفضلي عربي ولا إنجليزي؟ عكلا ممكن أحطها أنا هلأ بالإنجليزي، وبعدين إذا هي قالت لي بدها تنقل على العربي بقدر أنقلها. أوكي، سو هلأ أنا رح أعمل بريك أوت رومز. 2. أوكي.
سوسن بليز، رقم 1 العربي ولا 2؟
رقم 1 عربي. أنا I will assign
أوكي.
you.
أوكي.
أنا رح أعملكم بالجروب. الجروب الأول عربي، والرابط اللي مكتوب عليه جروب 1 اللي بعته داود، وجروب 2 بالإنجليزي الرابط الثاني اللي بعته داود. أوكي، بس أعطوني دقيقة والعربي رح يشتغل مع عليا، وأنا رح أكون بالإنجليزي. أوكي. أوكي.
العربي جروب 1.
جروب 1 العربي. الوركر سنتر اللي هو ميرفت صح؟
Yes.
اوكي. طيب اوكي. الوركر سنتر هون. داود راح احطك هلا بالعربي وبعدين هاي
انا
أوكي.
حاتنقل بين الجروبين بس لنشوف الشغل وكيف
طيب.
الاداء.
اوكي. الانتربريترز رانيا وتنزيلا. تنزيلا بحطها بالانجليزي لانه ممكن تنزيلا will translate from English to Bangla. اوكي. صار هو عدد بالجروب 1 العربي صار اكبر، بس معلش هلا. مرحبا. اوكي. اهلا. اظن اوكي خلاص الكل صار موجود. اوكي. نحن رجعنا مثل we're the same as on Monday. It's Mr. محمد, Miss Sunita وMiss Suha and myself. Okay. اوكي.
ما نقدر نجيب، يعني حاسه الجروب شوي قليل على ما
يعني
حتى لو انه انجليزي بقول ما بنقدر نضيف حد ثاني.
خليني اشوف هلا. انا اللي صار عندنا انه دكتورة تغريد عودة مش موجودة، مش عم بشوفها. كنت متأملة إنه تكون معنا بس خليني
الجروب كم من واحد؟
هداك الجروب 9.
يعني شايفة إحنا يعني لو بنقدر نجيب 1 أو 2 هون بجوز عشان لأنه هيك فينا كلنا يعني
نفس
ما بقلل من حد، لا والله، بس يعني هيك بيكون في تنوع أكتر، ناخذ فيدباك أكتر لما يكون في معنا مجموعة.
طيب أنا سمعت عبد الجواد نتش بيحكي إنجليزي المرة الماضية، راح أسأل إذا بنقدر. خليني أسأل عليها بس دقيقة.
Sunita, we're just checking if we can add more people to the group because we're 5 while the other group basically
أو
has
نماذج السببية.
اوكي.
ننقل واحد من عندكم عنا على القليلة. ممكن مستر عبد الجواد نتشي بالإنجليزي يجي عنا.
عبد الجواد بدهم يخطفوك للمجموعة الثانية، بتوافق؟
ما في مشكلة.
اوكي. طيب وإذا في حدا تاني بيقدر بحب to join الإنجليش جروب. اوكي. اوكي راح ازيد، راح اضيف move to room 2. اوكي كتير منيح. هلا زدنا شخص واحد. إذا if sorry I'm speaking in Arabic. If Dr. تغريد عودة joins, I will add her to our group as well if she agrees, of course. Okay. So هلا بدنا نروح على الرابط اللي مكتوب عليه. We need to go to the link, the last link that Dawood sent. And one thing I can do is after we start, I can share my screen so that everybody can see what we are doing. Okay. Let me increase. Okay. I will share my screen as well. If anybody's having a hard time with working on the link, you can just tell me, and you can share an idea and I can reflect it on the screen. Does anybody have questions about the process?
No, it's okay, but can you share with us the link for our platform here?
The link for what? For this?
For this one, yeah.
Okay. It's still in the chat. Do you want me to share it again in the chat?
Okay, is it this one?
Yes, it's the one I'm highlighting.
Yeah,
it's the last link. Yes.
I got you. Okay.
Okay. And then I just want to maybe just say a word to distinguish between the driver and the trigger. If you can just think of the driver as a factor that is more underlying, that is more, let's say, social, economic, underlying factors, and the trigger or muhafiz, the trigger is more like immediate, something that is more individual, rather than a more like economic context, or something, let's say, in the case of some migrant domestic workers, for example, in Lebanon, a trigger would be not, having problems with the husband, wanting to leave the husband, so migration. Whereas the driver will be economic conditions, a flood, things that are more underlying and more social political determinants. And let's use the same colors. What I can do is I can actually post a few little blue sticky notes here, and people can just feel free to write inside them sticky notes that are of the same color.
So, Sausan, how it goes?
It's okay, Lisa. We're starting now. But I don't see any red.
يعني الدافع ممكن سوسن يكون كوارث طبيعية مثلا.
Something like climate change could be a driver.
Sure.
It can be.
In the context of Bangladesh, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Samson, there's only one risk event, so there's only one risk event, so we don't need like to post on under this,
Okay, but we need green for controls.
Later on, it will be like in the next step. So this step we need to focus on those four. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So let's on the drivers, triggers,
and consequences.
We do the consequences.
Yes.
The risk event is migration. That's one thing, and the consequences. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
The issue here is I need to reduce the size so we can see everything, but this means that we have to write in very small font.
No. What you can do, if after you finish the driver, okay, later on you can zoom in and work on the trigger. Later on you can do it. So you can spot on one.
Yeah, we can do that. We can just focus on the top two first.
Okay, so you have, yeah,
Let's focus on
it's
the
clearer
topic.
now.
Sorry, Susan, I'm starting filling the box. Is that okay?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, of course. You're right. If anybody is having a hard time with filling in, let me know. Just send me, tell me the idea verbally and I can write it.
Susan, I'm still unable to access it. I still get the message low resources, but it's the issue is from the connection, the internet connection that I have. But the climate change, high unemployment rates ممكن, or no available jobs in their home countries.
As a driver?
Yeah, it could be.
Might be this could goes better with the trigger. Yeah, poverty could be with as a driver, but unemployment could be like a trigger or something like that.
You know, it's sometimes it's the same. There's some nuance between them, so it can be mixed. So for some it would be this one, for the other it's gonna be the other choice. So
all right,
okay. ممكن نحط الحروب war.
Sure. I believe, yeah, the word.
I already added the Sikh refugee, for example, because I think it's different about the security. For example, in Lebanon, it's for financial security, for example. Now they have crisis and financial issue. But for Syria, I think we have here in Jordan Syrian refugees. They came to Jordan as refugees.
No, here I didn't mean maybe maybe what I meant conflict, for example. It's not necessarily war, but it could be war could push people outside the country even if they're not refugees.
Of course. In the case of Ethiopian domestic workers in Lebanon, for example, with the economic conditions, many of them cannot repatriate, for example, because they have war in their country.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Shanita, you're okay. I saw your name, so.
Basically, aspiration for better life is the drive force for the migration. Aspiration for better life.
Okay.
I can write that.
Sorry, we are not able to write for some reason.
It's okay. You can tell me, and I can write it.
And
Susan, and a reminder, if there's something not clear, you can go to the right to see the slides again and to share it even for the participants.
Sure.
It is there.
Sure.
So, okay. And even there's an example at the end, so at the bottom, so about it. Okay.
Would anybody like to look at that now, or
it's up to them? So, but you can do whatever. Okay. If there's no question for me, so I can go back to the other group.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. See you later.
See you.
Susan, there is one more thing.
Yes, tell me.
See, I don't know how to summarize this, but because of the reduced public sector spendings in social sectors like education, health, and transport, in all these things, there is a cost of living burden has increased on countries of origin. Even that is also another reason for people to migrate to catch up with the cost of living expenses and all. So reduce public sector spending by states in countries of origin. Yeah.
Might be this could go under the social protection, something like that. Is that right, Sunita?
So
yeah, it's also social protection. It's also about state responsibilities, state playing the role of welfare state and taking care of the needs of the people.
So this is related to structural adjustment policies, where governments start to spend less on public services. So usually women become impacted more.
Yeah. But is this a trigger or driver? I believe it's more specific, so maybe it could be a trigger.
It's in countries of origin, it's a more of a driver, because in 70s and 60s there is a concept of welfare state in all these South Asian countries. So people kind of getting basic amenities without much struggling much. But that is not the case in from 2000s, when the new economic policies and liberal policies have come.
Okay.
So it's mostly a driver.
Driver. Okay. All right.
How do we put it if someone, you know, some people are basically targeted based on their race, religion, or nationality? I'm not sure. Is it under discrimination?
I put it as a discrimination under the driver.
It's religious prosecution, or
not only religious. It could be nationality. It could be
gender,
race,
anything. Yeah, any kind of discrimination. I put it under driver. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or political.
I add a point.
Yes.
Okay. So,
can triggers be violence, or they could be drivers?
What's that? Violence?
Violence.
Yes. It's a trigger, right?
It's a trigger, yeah.
Violence, you mean interpersonal?
Yeah.
Violence, yeah.
Because the violence generated from the inequality, you know what I mean?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm just thinking. Can we put
as a trigger? I guess.
Violence as a trigger.
As a trigger, yeah.
Yeah, in South Asian countries, especially when there is a violence in the community, violence in the family against women. So women opt for migration as an option to escape from that violence.
Yeah.
So that came out in many of the discussions. It's a group, small group, but it's still a significant.
But I mean, do you think it's a trigger or a driver?
It's a driver.
Okay.
I think it will be a driver.
You think
I think it's a driver.
Yeah, in case of South Asia, especially from Bangladesh, it can be a driver.
So this is like domestic violence in the family.
Not only domestic violence.
Women violence, children violence, you know?
Yes, especially I don't know whether there is another point, like if women migrant worker is safely migrated to the destination country, they earn a lot of money and return back to the origin country, then people started saying that, oh, your character, you don't have a good character, you must have done something unusual things, that's why you are earning.
We can't hear you well.
Okay. Okay, should I repeat it again?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so in Bangladesh, what happens that people, the returnee woman migrant who actually earns, who actually safely migrated to the destination country and came back with profit and with a good amount of money, people started poking her or started saying that her character is not good. That is why she is earning a lot of money. So this again like trigger her or like push her to remigrate, even if she doesn't want to migrate again. So this is another point, and in our field, we most of the time we found this kind of woman in the community.
Okay.
Yes, there is another driver. I don't know whether it should be driver or trigger. That is, women migration is low here rather than the man migration. So usually the husband used to push their wife to migrate. Yeah.
Also forced married also.
Sorry.
Forced married.
It's also married, and even if there is a young woman who can migrate, her parents also wants to send her to the destination country because send the daughter, because the cost is low. Yeah, but mostly it's happened with the married woman.
No, what Natasha is saying is that women workers from South Asia also try to get out of the forced marriage. That's why they opt for migration.
Oh, okay. No, my point is different. Sorry.
So here I put it under trigger. Is this okay? So the woman would migrate to escape forced marriage?
Trigger?
I'm just trying to distinguish between the drivers, which are more structural and like population, affect whole populations, and the triggers, which are more like maybe interpersonal.
Yeah. So, what about the cover of life cost expenditure?
Life cost expenditure?
Yeah.
In what sense?
Most of the people do the migration because they want to cover their kids' studies, to build a house, So it's so general thing, but I did not see very clear here in the driver or even the trigger. So I'm just thinking, I'm not suggesting here. So what do you think about that? Can we have a specific word for that?
So there's something called children's education. So sometimes women who have children, they migrate in order to make sure that their children will go to school. Here also some women migrate because there's another member in the family who has healthcare needs to cover the cost.
Yeah, I believe even decent work could cover that. Okay.
How about relations between, like sometimes there are recruiters who go to villages, for example, in Bangladesh or Nepal, and sometimes women who have not thought about migrating, but the recruiters start to, like in Bangladesh, there's something called Dalal, who start to talk to women about migrating and how much money they will make, and yeah.
Yeah, this is as a driver.
You think as a driver?
Yeah, because it's not trigger. The encouragement could be a trigger, but the concept is a driver, I believe. When the woman does not thinking to do migration and somebody come and encourage her to do, this is a driver. He push her to do.
Okay.
And it's very important one what you talked about, because they use them under this line.
Maybe they fall under trigger, Muhammad, more than a driver.
Under trigger?
I don't know. I'm thinking Dalal, especially Dalal in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of the encouragement, like a motivation. Yeah, could be. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Totally right. I agree. Yes.
Okay. Right. What does this equality mean?
equality mean gender equality, mean religion equality. It's the thing comes because of discrimination.
Okay.
So when you have discrimination in your country, you're looking for an equality.
So striving for equality, for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where exactly the displacement, the studies shows that displacement of the communities is also displacement either for the mining, displacement either for the change in the patterns of agriculture, whatever, acquiring the lands for the real estate, all these things is also contributing for the displacement, and displacement is triggering the migration or driving the migration. So how shall we put it?
So like the devastation of the agricultural sector, for example, or the closing of mines. There are no more jobs for miners, M-I-N-E-R. So then people start to migrate. Is that what you mean?
No, I mean that acquisition of lands, agricultural lands for the mining purpose, and not doing agricultural infrastructure is not given priorities by the national governments. All these practices leading to huge scale displacement. Because of displacement, the migration is also happening. So whether it is a driving factor or it is a trigger, I'm just thinking. Displacement issues, whatever the displacement is due to, whether it is because of mining or acquisition of lands or agriculture is not doing well, whatever, but there is a displacement.
This goes under economy issues, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I believe it's trigger more than a driver, because the economy issues is a driver.
The economic issue, big economic changes are more in the driver. So here, if I understand correctly, is the economic change in the country of origin. For example, when agricultural land is transformed into mining, into land used for mining.
Yeah.
تعملها فطور؟ لا انا باخذ لك البيت. انا باخذ البيت. اكلت ما شاء الله ما شاء الله طيبه.
Take your فطور يا جماعه.
كلي هاي جبنه كلي.
سها.
انا اخذه ولا خليه عليه؟
جبنا في الموضوع.
ما بديل بعد لا خاصي. وهذا المج بدي اكبه.
مين هي؟
I'm trying to use Soha, but it's not working.
Take it easy. There's a trigger for migration, actually.
Okay. What about women who are indebted, who have loans in their country of origin, or families in general?
Yes, this is what I meant by covering life expenditure, because it's kind of expenditure, you know.
Okay. So I'm gonna add, oops, what happened here? Indebtedness.
Sorry, can you say once again? I didn't understand.
Like if the family has a debt and they can't pay it, then one person will migrate to work in order to send money back to pay the debt. I mean, the debt can be because of healthcare expenditures, because of losing land or whatever. escape forced marriage, also to escape violence. So married women.
I think perception here in Bangladesh is also important. Like if a woman works here in a garment factory, people think her as a negative person or have negative perception about her. But if she went to another country and do the same work, they think it's a good. They take her. It's a I mean, as a compliment, like, yes, she is going abroad and earning money. Nobody is watching what is she doing. Everybody is know that, yes, she is working in abroad. So I think this is another issue for Bangladesh.
Okay.
Sausan.
Yes.
What about the social security as one of the social protection bases?
Social security, like what? Like, so a driver is
a social protection. Driver is a social protection is a driver.
Lack
But
of social.
to have like a retirement payments and something like that, healthcare after retirement is this kind of social security and one of social protection bases. So I believe if we put gaining social security membership as a trigger.
No. For migrant workers, how does Social Security actually provide retirement benefits and health benefits and all? Migration, we are talking about it's not an unlimited time migration, no? It's a time-bound migration. Migration happens and people go back.
Okay.
So in that way, Social Security, because there is lack of Social Security and social protection in countries of origin, people are opting to migrate. But that if there is social protection, maybe their basic needs are taken care, so they don't need to migrate.
That's what I now, Sunita. We are talking about the trigger, but we don't talking about the fact here. When the woman doing the migration to other country, she could looking for social security membership, even it's not applying for the migrant here in Jordan. You know what I mean? So we are talking about the trigger and the driver. What's going on? We can go under the risk events or controls or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking loudly. That's it.
Yeah, I understand what you are saying, Mohammed. I'm sorry, I just make one point. But in case of government sector workers, the social security, in terms of social security, what they get is exactly what they contribute.
Okay.
So they don't get any employer's contribution. They don't get any state contribution. They get only the money which is deducted from their salary. At the end, they get the lump sum of it.
It's such a like saving. That's it.
Yeah, that's all. So it doesn't actually. If you ask some of the migrant workers, they will say, anyways, you are giving our whatever you deducted from us. So it's as good as not even not good as having one.
Okay.
So in such that doesn't migrant workers case, it doesn't make any difference.
All right.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I have some comments here or points that we can add. I don't know if they fall or come under consequences or not. The first one about excessive recruitment fees in government sector. And the other point may be related to discrimination. For example, yesterday we were talking about for example, in government sector, the pregnancy test, and it's fall under discrimination and against international labor standards. Another point is related to different working conditions from what they have agreed in the country of destination and the country of origin. I think all these points come under consequences.
Yeah, you're right. Yes, Suzanne, I prefer to not spend all the time with driver and triggers. We can go under the other issues like consequences, as Abdul Jawad mentioned, and the risk events. What do you think?
The risk event is one thing, which is migration.
Yeah, I know.
Sure. So the consequences are what Abdul Jawad was saying is
excessive recruitment fees. Particularly, if we're talking about government sector. So excessive recruitment fees, discrimination, different working condition.
Is it consequences or risk event?
I think risk event, it will be maybe child labor, discrimination, freedom of association as well, and forced labor.
Forced labor, yeah. Sexual abusive, yeah.
High recruitment fees is something that happens before women migrate, right?
Yeah.
Recruitment fees, it's through the whole recruitment process. So they can pay for the brokers in their country through the traveling, and once they arrive to Jordan. So it's a longer process.
Yeah, and you can put it under both of them, right?
Yeah.
So
They
here
may
the question, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Susan, they may even pay it to the employer here in Jordan. They start basically, recruitment fees start in their home countries, but they don't end there. Sometimes employers would request reimbursement for recruitment fees. So the whole process is in their home countries until they reach here, or even might go back to their home countries.
We can't hear you well, Suha.
اوكي
سو حكت انه زي ما انا حكيت انها بتضلها عمليه متواصله، انها مش بس في دولتهم. I think there is a difference as well between recruitment fees and recruitment cost. For example, recruitment cost to issue their work permit, to issue health certificate, but recruitment fees to pay for brokers and for recruitment agencies.
You solve it now. You know, recruitment fees could go under the consequences and recruitment cost under the risk event.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
So the recruitment cost, for example, if it's cheaper to pay the recruitment fees to come to Jordan.
It's considered sometimes acceptable, for example, to issue work permit and to conduct, for example, medical test. But recruitment fees pay directly for recruitment agencies and for brokers. And sometimes, as Suha mentioned, for employers sometimes.
So is it low recruitment cost? So
it's not low. To issue your passport, it's not my responsibility as employer to issue a passport for you if you don't have a passport, for example.
How is that a trigger for migration?
No, it's not trigger.
What is it?
Recruitment cost.
So, or even how is it a consequence? So here we're talking about, what are the factors that drive women, and to migrate to work in the garment sector. And then what are the consequences once they start working in the garment sector?
See, Sauzan, are we talking about the consequences, both negative and positive, right?
Yes, of course.
So there, see, in many of the cases, workers earn the reasonable amounts and build the assets and better their lives. They will be able to provide the education to their children. They're able to afford decent housing. There are cases like that. These are the positive sides of the migration, and countries also get the remittances. But on the other side, you see the abundant supply of cheap labor for the supply chain, supply chains. It's like you are actually opening the gates for the exploitation and wage theft, and by putting the workers in a completely unfamiliar cultural and legal context, you are opening the gates for exploitation, and there's a cheap source of labor. These are the consequences at the higher level. Am I clear?
Yeah.
So since we are talking specifically about the garment sector, the recruitment cost could be a trigger, because as a domestic worker, you will pay more than the garment sector, you know? Because
okay, so
as Sunithia mentioned, it's with the garment sector, it's more sustainable, all the process. So there is no way to use the people.
okay, so yes, so this is now it becomes a trigger, because we're saying that women migrate to work in factories because the recruitment is less than working than applying, or the recruitment cost is less than getting a work permit and residency to work in domestic labor.
Yeah.
I didn't get that. Just to clarify one thing, Sausan, the
Yes.
ILO general principles and operational guidelines on recruitment fees and related costs say that employers should pay the recruitment fees and the costs. Okay, although this is not the case in Jordan, but according to the ILO, it is the responsibility of the employer to pay for the costs, for the fees and the costs. Now there is there's a list, but again, we don't have, there are so many costs that could be, that may not be mentioned in the ILO general principles, but again, it is the responsibility of the employer to pay for these. That's what I wanted to highlight here.
So
now,
when the women pay that, where is it?
They shouldn't pay anything. So for example, you know, just to give a simple example, because Abdul Jawad mentioned the passport. The passport is something that employers have been arguing about for the past few years, saying that it is not the responsibility of the employer to pay for the passport cost of the worker. But as ILO, we basically look at why would a garment worker or a domestic worker have a passport unless this is for the purpose of leaving the country and working in another country. So the main reason to issue it is basically for work, for that worker. Yes. So it is the responsibility of the employer to pay that. I'm saying it's a long debate, but for us as ILO, the employer should bear that, should be the one to bear the fees and the costs.
Yeah. What I want just to go from the ILO concept here, once the owner has to pay this money, and the actual that the worker pay this money, this not a trigger now, this kind of risk event.
No, the risk event is migration. There's one risk event. The risk event is migration or migration under exploitative conditions, migration in forced labor. That's the risk event.
Okay, I get you. Maybe understand that. All right.
See,
so yes.
Sorry, Suha, you want to say? You were saying something, so Suha.
I was going to say, actually, it's interesting because in reality, women may migrate to work in the garment sector because the recruitment cost, the cost of traveling and working in the garment sector is lower than the cost of, you know, basically coming to work as a domestic worker. However, I mean, that's in reality. However, in theory, the cost should be the same because for the worker, because because ILO is arguing that the employer should pay these fees.
Yeah, but that's why I wanted to know, when we say it is lower or higher, for who exactly are we looking at it?
The trigger is for the worker herself.
So I mean, when we say whether the recruitment fees are lower in the domestic work, or we're speaking about for the worker?
For the worker, yes.
It should be the same because they shouldn't pay anything at all.
In theory, of course, yes. But you're
course.
saying, everybody's saying that the women end up paying for the cost of traveling. Yes, before and even after.
But Susan, there's one thing that we also need to understand, that even women in the domestic work, they do sometimes, but not, probably not clear how much they pay. Because, for example, there is no compliance in the domestic work. So basically nobody knows if domestic workers are paying anything to come and work in Jordan. So this is something that we're saying that we don't, but in fact, we may say that perhaps we could better say that we're not sure 100% that they're not paying because there is no compliance. So it's difficult to know if they are or not.
In the domestic work,
yes,
or
yes.
Also in the garment.
No, domestic, specifically
the domestic. Yes. I mean, it's the same in Lebanon. Sometimes women pay before they come to Lebanon. Sometimes they don't pay, and then they come, and the recruitment agent tells them that you are not going to get a salary the first 3 months. So it's nobody knows exactly what's going on. Yeah. It depends on the employer and the recruitment agent.
Yeah. And we are aware of a number of cases whereby the employers requested compensation from the domestic worker if she wants to leave her employer, especially at the beginning of the
contract.
Yes. Yeah, that's
okay.
Where do we put al-kafala, restricted mobility, and all of these things? Consequences, right?
Yeah. So the kafala has to appear because it's the big elephant in the room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But is it consequences?
Or a risk event, maybe?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm just thinking.
I believe it's risk event. It's not consequences.
But
many
Sausan said we only
consequences.
have one. But Sausan said we only have one risk event, which is basically the migration.
That's it. Please, Sausan, add one more.
I'm adding kafala here.
Okay.
In the risk event, so we can say migration under kafala.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not just migration. It's migration where immediately when the woman arrives, she has a kafil, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the risk event, is migration under kafala.
Mm-hmm.
What about lack of grievance mechanisms through the recruitment process? Is it considered under consequences?
Lack of grievances procedures. Let's go here. And where is this? What
definitions?
More.
Yeah. Okay.
Go a little bit down. I think you have to go a little bit down, and then to the right. Yeah.
Okay, so we are here. Oops.
Here
okay, here.
Susan.
Yes.
Susan, can I just clarify one thing?
Yes. Go ahead, please, Sunita.
This is in the consequences that you have put exploitation of cheap labor. Exploitation of cheap labor is one thing, but there is also another consequences that continuous supply of labor, abundance source of cheap labor, that is also another thing. So there is, if you have this migration coming from South Asian countries to Middle East countries, there is a continuous supply of cheap labor.
Okay.
That is also
okay. We can start working on the consequences.
Okay, can we say under the consequences, for example, forced labor, trafficking? No?
Yes.
Forced labor, trafficking.
Okay.
Restricted mobility.
Oops. So this continuous availability of cheap labor, this is more like a broad so let me put this somewhere here, this here, to acknowledge. But then there's exploitation, forced labor, restricted mobility. Okay. What about health conditions? You know?
Yes, I think health condition is also an important point.
Yeah. And in what sense?
In what sense? In Bangladesh, I met some Jordan garment worker who migrated to Jordan. So they were saying that in Bangladesh, the machine is different. And mostly the women who used to migrate are used to work and in-house, but after going there they have to work use the machine, so they are not used to about it, and after using the machine, most of the women reported that they have pain in the they have pain in bone, in the backbone.
Musculoskeletal.
Yeah. They are suffering from these problems. Yeah.
You're talking about sewing machine?
Yes, I'm talking about sewing machine.
To be honest, this is the first time I hear about this one, because I think the sewing machine is the same in the whole world. We have two kinds of sewing machine.
No. Actually, I'm not talking about the sewing machine. I'm just saying that women who are migrated used to work in home in Bangladesh. So
okay.
they are not used to.
Okay. I think we can add long working hours or long overtime working hours, or working for a long time after the ordinary working hours. In general, if we're talking about the OSH or occupational safety and health, we can talking about working environment.
So long working hours. Is there exposure to certain chemicals? Like, I don't know, those women who work
in garment sector, not all factories they work or use chemical, but some factories, yes, they use chemical.
مثلا glue, smelling glue and هيك يعني ما في هذا الشيء ولا لا؟ Is there, are women exposed to?
بعض المصانع بيستخدموا هي الصبغات، بعض المصانع اللي بيستخدموا مثلا بيعملوا البلاطين الجينز او التيشيرتات اللي عليها طبعة، اغلبها بتكون الوان مائية مش كيميكال، بس يعني بيستخدموه بشكل بسيط، مش كل المصانع. يعني انت
Okay.
ممكن تحطيها بشكل عام الاوش issues بدل ما تحطيها مثلا مخصصة كيميكال، ممكن تحطي اوش or occupational safety and health issues to cover the whole working environment.
See, there are poverty wages in the garment sector. Like 125 is the cash wage. Unless workers do overtime, they cannot have a meaningful, somewhat meaningful earnings. Like 125 cash wage, and then the overtime, how many hours the overtime they can do, they will earn that much of the additional wage. Together it makes some kind of meaningful income. In order to get this meaningful income, they work excessive hours, and because of these excessive hours they develop so many occupational health disorders. For example, you see workers complaining about muscle pains and shoulder pains, and then
Yes.
kidney stones, because they don't work, they don't go to washroom, they don't drink enough water to not to go to washroom. If they go to washroom, they cannot, they have to break they won't be able to achieve the targets. So that's why they don't go to washroom, and to not to go to washroom, they don't drink water. Because of that, many workers complain about kidney related issues.
Okay.
So there are several occupational health hazards because of
Sure.
overtime work, which is purely because of the poverty wages in the garment
Sure.
sector.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I was told, and this is very important for me because I'm in the public health field.
But Susan,
Alia
before you
told
finish,
Alia told me the session is over, but tell me one last thing. Are we taking a break?
شكرا.
Okay, we have, let's just finish up, and then we need to take a break until 12. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Abba Jawad, I heard you.
كنت أحكي, we forgot one important point. I think is very important in government sectors related to dorms issues and dorms conditions.
Okay.
We can add unhealthy dorms conditions, or because you know all migrant workers in Jordan, the employers provide them with dorms. So we should not forget the dorms issues, because they spend 16 hours more than the working hours.
Is there crowding? Is there no hot water?
Yeah, there is instruction govern dorms situation in Jordan, but some employers, you know, no one perfect. So some dorms is not healthy, and lack of space maybe, and as Sunita mentioned, problems in drinking water, washing room.
Sure. Sure.
So in
Okay.
general.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to add one point. I don't know whether it's not true for the garments worker, but it's true for the migrant domestic worker for Bangladeshi, and that is violence. Mostly they face violence, domestic violence, sexual violence actually in the destination country. They reported sexual violence, so that is another reason. Okay.
It can apply to garment workers as well. I'm not sure to what extent, but yeah, I mean, the domestic workers, because the work is in the privacy of the home, then there's more risk. Okay, I put that as a consequence. Thank you so much, Tanzila. We really have to break now. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to put the recording on hold, pause, and I'm going to close the breakout rooms.
Okay. وخليني أنا أعمل شير سكرين عشان أرجع للبريزنتيشن، بس أتأكد إنه الكل معنا. أستاذ فايز معنا؟ مو باين. لا، زوم يوزر بلا. اوكي طيب، هلا شكرا كثير على النقاش الجميل اللي كان في الجلسات. بتمنى المجموعة الثانية كمان تكون نقاشها ثري زي نقاشنا. بس هلا رح نعطي مجال نرجع يعني نعمل ريكاب على أهم النقاط اللي تعرضنا لها بالمجموعات. لكن هلا الجزء الثاني من الشغل حتى نكمل بناء نماذج السببية، أو أعطي مجال لرانيا تترجم.
Hopefully you had a fruitful discussion like we did, and now the second part of the work will be about the causal effects.
اوكي، هلا النماذج السببية اللي قاعدين عم نبنيها أفرزت لنا يعني فهم معين لأبعاد المشكلة، أو أتليست أعطتنا شوية ملامح عن المشكلة وإن لم تكن مستوفاة لكافة أبعاد المشكلة. هلأ بدنا نعمل نفس التمرين، ولكن بدنا نناقش فيه إيش هي الكنترولز، أو كيف بنقدر نضبط المسائل بحيث إنه نغير احتمالية وقوع الخطر اللي حكينا عنه، أو إيش هي المخففات. يعني أحيانا ما بنقدر نوقف تماما، ولكن ممكن يكون عندنا استراتيجيتنا تنطوي على mitigation، مخففات اللي بتخفف من حدة العقبات.
So now, although we do not know the details of every problem, but we have an idea about it. And now in the next part, we're going to see the controls and how can we change the possibility of this motive or trigger, and the mitigants. So that means maybe you cannot eliminate all the risks, but we can mitigate them.
فهلا زي ما هو مبين عندكم، يعني هو النموذج سهل، يعني بناؤه تقريبا دايركت، ما فيه يعني تشالنجز او تحديات كبيره. هي هلا بيهمنا نعرف كيف ممكن نضبط المساله، او كيف ممكن نخفف من حدتها، حتى بعدين نقرر ايش هي الاولويات.
As you can see, it's a very simple model. It's very important to know how can we reduce the risks, and later on we can identify the priorities.
هلا زميلتنا سوسن أظن بدها توزعنا، بنرجع على نفس المجموعات، ما بعرف نفس المجموعات أو مجموعات مختلفة. داود يمكن بيفيدنا، ما بعرف.
شكرا عليا. سوري، بس بدي اتدخل بس بشغله لوضح ليكون كثير بالنسبه لك لنا كلنا على نفس الصفحه. الضوابط هي اللي ممكن تحول دون وقوع عامل الخطر اللي عم نحكي عنه، مثل ما شايفين بالصوره قدامكم. يعني هي انه قبل ما يصير ممكن يكون في ضوابط انه تمنع الخطر هذا يوقع او يصير. إذا صار إنه المخففات هي اللي بتصير بعد وقوع العامل الخطر، بعد وقوع الحدث، كيف ممكن نخفف منه، أو كيف ممكن يكون في إجراءات إنه علاجية أو تخفيفية أو تعويضات أو غيره. إنه بهذا الإطار، بهذا التسلسل، عشان هيك نحن سميناها رود ماب، الخريطة. يعني بننتقل من عامل لعامل لعامل، شو هي العوامل اللي بتخفف أو شو هي العوامل اللي بتحول دون وقوع هذا الخطر. اوكي، بس ليكون القصة واضحة. عفوا، وقبل ما اعطي كمان سوري رانيا اذا بدك تترجمي.
So in order to be clear, we are here, we are describing a roadmap. This is why we'll take it step by step. So if, for example, we're able to control the risks, we can do so. If not, if we cannot prevent it, we can reduce it, try to mitigate it if possible.
عليا إذا بتفرجينا السلايد اللي بعد هذا اللي هو المثال ليكون أوضح بالنسبة لهم الشيء اللي عم نحكي عنه. مثلا في عنا مثال من فيتنام حول ندرة المياه.
So here Alia will show you the next model from Vietnam about the scarcity of water.
اوكي، بالنسبه للطريقه اللي شايفينها انه شو هو الدافع، انه في عنا قصه بتتعلق بالنمو السكاني والاقتصادي اللي صار بفيتنام. التريجر اللي هو انه القنوات جار المياه هي قنوات انه عم المواسم الرطبه بتخفف من نقل المياه هيدي القنوات.
So here the motive is the population and economic growth, and the trigger is the increase on the water demand for agriculture.
ومحفز ثاني او حافز ثاني اللي هو زياده الطلب على المياه من اجل الزراعه، يعني مش بس كمياه الشرب، في طلب عليها للزراعه.
So we need the water here, and this is another trigger, is that we need water for agriculture and for planting, not only for drinking water.
اوكي، العامل الخطر اللي صار عندنا بفيتنام هو انه تشييد البنى التحتيه للري بالاعتماد على المياه الجوفيه فشل بالحد من وقف تدهور خزان المياه الجوفي. يعني انه في عندنا كان خزان مياه جوفي فشل هذا الموضوع بالحد من تدهوره.
So here the risk factor is that the infrastructure or establishing the infrastructure for irrigation that depends on water has totally reduced, has totally failed in the deterioration process and in keeping the water tank during the 5 years. So this is why this risk factor has completely failed.
وبالنسبة للعواقب اللي نتجت عن هذا الشيء انه صار في كميات اقل للمياه عم توصل، المياه الشرب للمنازل، وبنفس الوقت صارت الكلفة اعلى، يعني حتى لما بدهم يستخدموا ادوات لنقل المياه او غيره صارت كلفتها اعلى.
And the consequences here or repercussions is that the drinking water now is inaccessible, and if they have access to it, it is very costly.
ومثل ما فرجينا على الصورة اللي قبل اللي هي الضوابط اللي بتصير قبل وقوع عامل الخطر، في ضوابط كثيرة ممكن تكون، مثل موضوع مثلا تبطين بديل لقنوات المياه، تبطينها يعني انه استعمال ادوات لتبطينها او تغطيتها، او حتى انه تسعير، تحديد التسعير حسب الندرة، يعني هيدي ضمن اطار الضوابط اللي ممكن الواحد يستخدمها.
Also, among the controls that we can use, for example, in order to prevent this to happen again, is to cover it, to shield this water again in other seasons.
والفكرة الثانية اللي هي المخففات، اللي إذا صار هذا الموضوع كيف نخفف منه، يعني صار عندنا هذا الشيء، ممكن تكون إجراءات معينة مثل دعم مضخات المياه الجوفية العاملة على الشمس مثلا، إذا كنا عم نحكي عن موضوع الكلفة، أو بناء محطات لمعالجة المياه. هذا أنه صار عندنا هذا النقص، كيف بدنا نشتغل بعد ما يكون حصل هذا عامل الخطر.
So in case we face this risk, what can we do? If we couldn't prevent it, what can we do to mitigate it? And this is one of the mitigants, for example, to work on establishing water pumping, to work on the water systems using the solar system, and this will help us to reduce the cost also.
فهيدا إذا بدكم المثال إنه اللي بيعطينا صورة عن حالة معينة كيف عملنا الرود ماب تبعها من خلال ضوابط ومن خلال إذا بدكم المخففات اللي ممكن تصير اللي قبل وقوع عامل الخطر واللي ممكن بعد وقوعه.
So this is an example about the roadmap that we have worked when we face a certain risk, and if we face it, how can we mitigate it?
وهذا اللي حيكون الاكسرسايز اللي حنشتغل عليه، التمرين اللي حنشتغل عليه هلا، اللي هو فعلا تحديد الضوابط والمخففات.
And this will be the exercise that we will be working on the controls and mitigants.
اوكي. فهذا وهون بالنسبه للتعريفات اللي انه اذا ممكن حدا يكون بس ليكون واضح بالنسبه له الميتيجنتس شو هي والكنترول شو هي. وهلا بترك لسوسن انه اعاده توزيعنا اذا ما حدا عنده سؤال على
اذا داود بس عشان يتاكدوا زملائنا، لما بنحكي ضوابط يعني منع حدوث الحدث وليس تغيير، يعني لما بنحكي تغيير احتمال بمعنى انه يمنع حدوثه بالاساس.
So when you talk about controls here, we're defining both terms, controls and mitigants. When we talk about controls, that means we prevent it when the risk won't happen.
قبل ما توزعنا سوسن لمجموعات، يا ريت انه نحن جاهزين.
اوكي.
Any question? Is it all clear?
جاهزين؟ Are you ready?
حارجع للروابط نفسها سوسن، اللينكس اللي كانت موجوده هي ذاتها كل مجموعه.
يلا. اوكي.
معك سيدي معك.
الله يخليك الله يخليك. أي سؤال واضح للموضوع كيف ما نقاربه بأي طريقة؟ Is it clear? Everything is clear?
يعني أنا I missed some things لأنه كنت منشغل بشغلة ثانية مش هذا أكون صريح معك يعني. بس إذا بتعطيني يعني هيك لمحة بسيطة مرة ثانية.
Okay, and the target is to name the controls and the mitigants. Okay, the controls that prevent this risk to happen, this risk factor to happen, risk event, and the mitigants if it happened, how we can work on make it less influence or even helping the people, the victims in a way.
Okay, I got you. It's clear. Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, and even in the board you have, in the Canva you have on mural, you have the example. It's clear down on the right.
All right, I will.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So how?
داوود نقدر حدا يعمل شير للسكرين لأنه أنا ما بقدر أدخل على
أنا بقدر أعمل شير. Yes.
Yeah, Susan will share it. So and as I said before, we shared everything, even the examples and the exercise, how it is go, and the slides on the right, so you can check it.
Okay.
Okay. What we need to work now is on the controls and the mitigants.
Okay, I will have to reduce the font a little bit, zoom in a little bit. Oops.
Okay, you focus on the controls, later on the mitigants. It will be
okay.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Great. Any question for me before I go and check on the other group? Seems not. Okay, we'll be back.
Okay.
Thank you.
شو الضوابط اللي ممكن نعملها؟ هل مثلا ما بعرف law enforcement ايش تعتبر ضابط ولا لا؟ ما بعرف.
Is it general a little bit?
So Son, you're back here.
I know. I made a mistake.
It's okay, and still we have workers center here.
Yes, I need to join group 1 just to make my.
وكمان السيستم مرات عاليه، يعني انا مرات ما بعرفش، انا مش شفتش، يمكن الاستاذ فايد بيساعدنا بهاي القصه، بس يعني مثلا مش اللي هي الاتمته او اللي هي مش عارفه ايش اسمها بالانجليزي، اللي هي فكره انه ما في عندنا سيستم موحد للتفاصيل، ما في عندنا داتا تفاصيل كثير. يمكن وزاره العمل في عندها شويه، في عندها اكيد داتا قديش عدد العاملات من اي بلدان، شو نوع الشكاوى اللي بيجوهم، كل هاي الاشياء. بس كمان وزاره الداخليه عندها كمان نوع مختلف من الداتا اعتقد يعني. فمهم انه توحيد هاي، يعني مثلا بناء منصه وطنيه او شيء زي هيك بتتناول كل التفاصيل اللي لها دخل بالعمال المهاجره. وكمان قصه التفتيش، يعني قبل شوي الاستاذ فايز حكى عنها كمان.
I'm sorry, I had to go to the other room for a minute. So I'm sharing my screen again. Sorry about this. Does everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
All right. So I've been talking about controls. Would you repeat, Soha, what you did say?
Okay, but I was just saying, what about law enforcement? Is it a control or not?
All right.
And labor inspection.
Yeah.
Rules, regulations, laws.
Yes. You know, I believe regarding what you're saying now, I believe there is two kinds of controls: legislative controls in the country of destination, and implementation controls in bilateral agreements. So what you're talking here, I believe it's gonna be kind of legislative controls. in the country of destination if you want to reduce the violations or the paper forest.
Hello.
What do others think?
I just want to say that controls are complementary to drivers. There are things that can be done in the country of origin or globally to prevent the consequences from happening. Mitigants, the consequences are going to happen, but let's reduce their impact.
So if we want to talk about, for example, law enforcement, is it a mitigant instead? Or not really?
I believe it's controls.
Controls.
Yeah.
When we go back to the big group, the important thing is that we have an argument. That we present a strong argument. But it doesn't matter, we can open up the discussion again. Some of the participants in the other room may disagree with us. It's fine.
What possible controls do we have if it's not about labor inspection or even mitigants? How to control the migration process?
How could we distinguish between the controls and mitigants?
Again, the controls are big issues. مثل مثلا global policies، مثل مثلا social protection.
GCM.
هيك شيء. الميتيجنتس إنه okay, the mitigants are, let's say, okay, put in allow the migrant worker to use the toilet so that she doesn't have kidney stones. That's kind of the difference. What do you think are some of the, if you want, we can like maybe
mitigants. Susan, I think mitigants واحدة منهم could be الtargets, high targets. I'm specifically referring to the garment sector. Usually domestic garment workers are requested to achieve high targets. So basically they don't drink water because they don't want to waste time going to the bathroom or using the toilets. They want to achieve their targets. That's why they don't drink water. That's why they don't use the bathroom. That's why they have kidney stones. So could be reducing the target. That could be a mitigant. But as I'm saying, this is relevant only to the garment sector. And it's very, by the way, it's really important. Because,
we focus on the garment, yes.
Okay, so we can just say low target or less targets to be achieved by the domestic workers. It could change, by the way, just to clarify more, Susan, abuse, when we looked, there's a research that the ILO did a couple of years ago to resolve the issue, for example, of physical abuse or verbal abuse. They were all linked to the high target that the garment workers are basically asked to achieve. So they're subject to abuse if they're not getting their target. Hunger is another, it's exactly the same thing. It's linked also to the high target. They skip lunch to achieve their targets. They skip, they don't drink enough water because they, as I mentioned earlier, they don't want to go spend time going back and forth to the restrooms. So it is, when we look at the target, so many things are basically happening because of the high target workers are expected to achieve. But again, I'm not sure. I'm just assuming it's a mitigant. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. No, I personally see it as a mitigant. What do you think about some controls or mitigants? We can remember what we wrote up here. Poverty, climate change. So if controls kind of match these big headings of climate change, poverty, conflict, then the controls
maybe to make it more politically stable, but I don't know if this is really that easy. Easy said than done. Because it's all, for example, when we speak about conflict or war or discrimination, it could be stability, more stability, political stability. When we speak about poverty and high unemployment, provide better or sustainable development, for example, generating more jobs. I don't know. I'm just speaking out loud. What does others think? What do others think too?
Can medical insurance be added as a mitigate? Like they should have some medical insurance facilities. I don't know. And yes, another issues like for the preventing sexual violence, any complaining place or like where they can get the justice, any reliable place, yes, legal from the destination country, yes, though they are foreigners in the destination country, but to establish their rights or like to for them, if they have some laws, they could develop.
What kind of rights or laws?
Like just where they can go to report their sexual violence, there's so they can get the justice or like they can prevent it. I don't know whether it is available or not, but this thing just came to my mind. And there is another issues like information, available information, like if there is something like information desk systems that yes, you will get this information from here. It would be, I think, also helpful.
Information about rights?
Information about rights, yes. Information about right violations, all the things. Yeah.
Okay.
Another issues just came to my mind that one returnee woman migrant was just saying that if it would be great if a local from the original country, a local representative would present there to look after them, like I don't know, maybe they could just set kind of laws in the contract that yes, if you want to send some migrant in our country, then you have to also you have some local representative where they can go and who can actually fight for their rights, this kind of things. I don't know, maybe it was just from a community voice.
Would you say this is a control or a mitigant?
The control is in a bigger sense, right? So I guess, yeah, for the policy making, I think it would be a control, like having a local representative, or actually not in the not for saying that yeah we have a local representative, but in reality he's also taking some actions. In reality he's active.
Can you repeat that, please? Sorry. What would be
Yes.
control?
Okay, so local representative, like from my country, there should be a local representative who will fight for their rights or who will raise their voice. And in reality, not like in some bookish type of things or like in written documents, in reality, she will practice it. She or he will practice it. Yeah. And also there is another thing for the domestic worker. They were reporting that they have to stay in a family, right? So if there is a place where they can like after providing their service, like for 9 to 5 p.m. or just 10 hours, and then they could go some another place to take the rest or like for sleeping, because the timing and the culture is different in Middle East area. In Bangladesh, we don't actually we used to go to the sleep at 10 to 12, but in Middle East the culture is different. So they're just reporting that it would be great if they could go to another place for taking rest and these kind of things. Otherwise, they have to pay 24 hours duty, which is very much intolerable.
Tanzila, sorry, I think we're going to focus on garment workers.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, just to make sure that we have a cohesive sort of like map. Yeah.
So can we say under mitigants proper representation of workers?
Okay.
I don't know, I'm asking.
Yes, I mean, one thing we need to check is how it fits with. So Tanzila said appointing local representative for migrant workers, but my understanding is that Tanzila was talking about country of origin. Proper representation in destination country?
Yes.
Okay. As in the
because these are, you know, from what I understood is that the mitigants are basically things that we have to do to reduce the consequences, right?
To reduce the consequences, yes, if there's any exploitation, yeah.
So proper representation, they'll be able to raise that this would make workers able to raise their voices about the issues they face in the garment sector, for example.
Okay, so I'm including it. So we're including it up in controls, and you know, under mitigants in destination country. Yeah. Other things, I mean, it's difficult to talk about controls in the origin country if the factors are poverty, conflict, discrimination, lack of social protections. Anything that can be done in the country of origin, like trainings before the women migrate.
Pre-departure training?
Yeah. Would you think this is a mitigant?
But you know, pre-departure trainings are not always the solution.
Actually, now in Bangladesh, we call it pre-decision training, like whether firstly we make them understand that the benefits and the losses of the migration, and then we provide some government training. But yes, what the middleman, I mean the brokers or dalal does that, they don't inform if the recruitment is illegal, so they don't inform the woman that you have to do the training, you must have to do the training. They just provide some fake certificates. Even also for the medicals, they provide fake certificates. So here in origin country, what we can do, like to ensure their trainings as well as their medical issues, so the risk will reduce them.
I'm going to put pre-departure trainings, but maybe it's, I would say it's more a mitigant rather than a control. So it has a limited impact. It's not going to solve.
Yeah.
Oops.
Can we say international labor standards or conventions, international conventions as controls, or frameworks, migration frameworks? What do you think? Or no?
Yes, yes. I mean,
I'm trying to think of controls, not, it's still not clear to me.
Okay, بالنسبة about controls, let's say maybe some regulations, maybe some legislations, action can be like a kind of controls.
Say BLAs, for example, bilateral agreements.
Maybe it can be, yeah.
But bilateral agreements are usually it's a non-binding document. When we look usually at the bilateral agreements to see the provisions, whether they're implemented, usually countries don't look at these, they always refer to what the laws, regulations would say more than what, they don't usually follow what the BLAs mentioned. They have a lower implementation authority. I don't know how to say that, but again, it's non-binding to any of the parties.
So it can be by law, maybe some, I don't know, some measurements. It can be like legal measurements.
No. We can put by BLAs, we can put the Global Compact on Migration, if these could be controls. Although, I have to say that their impact is really, really minimal.
If I get the ticket in my hand, then
so I put impact in brackets.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Sorry, في حدا.
No, don't go.
Oh, Sunita, can you please mute?
No, I just want to ask one question. Just for clarification, controls both in countries of origin and countries of destination we are discussing, right?
Can be in both.
Yes, Dawood, go ahead, please explain.
It can be in both, like country of origin and country of destination.
Okay. So in that case, between both countries of origin and countries of destination, one large problem at the larger level is that insufficient funding for the labor ministries and labor department, labor inspection systems. They are not equipped to, they are suffering from both the technical capacity and also resources.
So more resources and more capacity, maybe more budget.
Yes, but it's not about it's not about labor departments alone. It's about a state policy, the state policy towards the labor ministry.
So this is one. So you can name it.
I put it under mitigants, enhanced capacity for inspection units. But there's also, it's not only about capacity, what I understand from Sunita.
She's talking about like kind of regulations, I believe.
No, I'm talking about state policy towards, like, for example, state has to, either in the countries of origin or countries of destination, they have to give sufficient resources, sufficient fiscal capacity for the Ministry of Labor to do the inspections.
Yes, so I believe it's a control, I believe. So if it is there, so it can prevent this from happening.
Dawood, excuse
Yes.
me. Under mitigants, you put pre-departure training. What about the upon arrival orientation? Because pre-departure training, you will take the information from the people on the origin country. They need to hear from the people in their destination country.
True. Yeah, it can be.
So I'm suggesting to put as a mitigants as well upon arrival or the orientation.
It would be great. And this is sometimes the role of the organization working in the country. So like defending their rights or even representing them when they need, like this center, workers center we have here.
Yes. And about the controls, what about the legislation?
I just mentioned, I don't know if you put it out there. It is really interesting to have like kind of legislations, regulations sometimes, maybe appointing some people to follow up on this. I don't know. And as Sunita said, maybe from the labor ministry.
Ministry, yeah, in both countries actually.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. So we need to put it out in the slides.
Under where? Can you tell me exactly?
Controls, I believe.
Controls, yeah.
Yes, and what is the wording?
Adapt the regulations with the global compacts or with the international standards.
The Global Compact on Migration, which is International Labor Migration Frameworks. And it's okay if we have it twice.
Okay,
yeah. We can rephrase it. So it's interesting to have like more ideas about it.
Okay.
What about the inspectors under the mitigants, sorry.
So they will inspect things after happened, or even they can prevent things from happening. So if they are working on the route, so maybe they can check on papers, maybe they can check on the contracts. I don't know. You decide. Maybe having a clear contact between the country of origin and the destination countries.
So these are bilateral agreements.
Okay. Yeah.
And then with respect to the mitigants, I mean,
inspectors, maybe inspection.
Yes, we used to have something here about inspectors, but then we moved it to controls about sufficient resources from Ministry of Labor for labor inspections.
So it can be in both, like those like checking after things happened and going through the agreements. So.
Okay.
Having organization, it's not there. I cannot see it. Maybe kind of representing for the workers, maybe.
That's right.
Worker representation in mitigants or حاطين proper representation in destination country.
Okay, but this sometimes can be like organization or even from the governments, so like consulate.
Dawood, I believe the principle of freedom of association as a control that could give an opportunity for the migrant workers to have their rights. Then under mitigants, you can put like improving worker centers or something.
Syndicates.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe we can put there syndicates, workers syndicates.
Yeah.
Even it's for migrants workers.
Yes.
I don't know if it is there in Jordan. I have no idea.
No, we talked about this on Monday. And the workers are, I mean, the migrant workers are part of the general syndicate, but they don't have the right to elect representatives or to run for office.
So that's a good point.
But they have the right to pay the fees.
Yeah, that's it.
As if it's a right, huh?
Yeah, they're right to pay. Extra payment, that's it.
Yeah.
Sorry, it is sad to laugh about.
Okay. So come on, what else should we think about?
So huh? Just checking.
يعني هيك عم بفكر ايش ممكن كمان نحط.
يعني أنت أخبر sorry, you're the expert there, so we need your input on this.
لا عم بحاول بصراحة، يعني عم بحاول أفكر شو الميتيجانز شو الكنترولز، يعني هدول بجوز أكثر إشي اللي
يعني التميز بيناتهم بتقصدي؟
لا قصدي إنه خلص يعني عم بحاول أطلع أشوف إذا في أشياء تانية إحنا ويمس، حاسة إنه كتير في شغلات ويمس بس مش عارفة شو هي.
بس أخشى ما أخشى إنه نبلش نكرر أنفسنا، يعني عارف بصياغات مختلفة. ذاتس إت، لأنه اللي شايفه مش عارف يعني مليان ما شاء الله، ما خليناش شيء تقريبا.
ما بعرف انه في مكاتب شكاوى معينه مثلا لهم ممكن يكون شيء للمتابعه للتخفيف، اذا مثلا في شيء ضمن اطار نقابه المحامين او شيء جهه بتتولى القصص متابعه الشؤون القانونيه متخصص.
Suppose the worker representatives to do so, but unfortunately in Jordan the unions does not have that active rule in this field.
Yeah.
Might be the textile union in Jordan playing well with that, but they don't cover all the factors in this field. So I believe kind of mitigants to establishing and let's say some aid office for
some legal consultants, maybe
legal consultant, legal aid, something like that.
It can be like kind of mitigants to suggest,
yeah,
like having this kind of to follow up. Maybe even I believe there's a problem with the language. Maybe if the contract it's in Arabic and English and the people don't know this kind of language, maybe.
So the contracts in the government are in workers' languages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's an improvement. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
But again, it doesn't mean that they know the terms of their employment, unfortunately.
So maybe to make it clear or even to simplify these contracts for them. Simplified contracts.
One of the things that I have to say is that when we speak, and this is very specific also, not only I have to say it's not only the garment, it's across all sectors. Usually, and most of the time, if not all the time, they don't know, workers don't know the actual
rights.
First of all, their rights.
Okay.
And
again, they don't know really the actual living and working conditions in the sector. And if I want to go specific into the garment, I have to go back again to the research that we did with Tufts University a couple of years ago, that although it was a corridor that the ILO was engaged to bring in garment workers from Nepal to Jordan, the garment sector. So through the whole process, the ILO was keen to provide workers with all the information they need on the unemployment in Jordan, or in the about the garment sector in Jordan. However, when they started their employment, and when we spoke to them afterwards, how to say that, despite what we said earlier, they said that they did not expect it to be that bad.
Wow.
You know, that was exactly what they said at the time. So because we sat with them, told them, what do you think about the work that you're currently doing? They said, okay, it's not like what we thought of a while back home. So we explained, but we also explained, for example, how much you'll be getting, what is the for how long you'll be working, like usually garment workers work for long hours. They only get one day off. The pay is very low. The wages are low. But they said, we didn't think it's like, even though you said all of these things, but we didn't expect it to be, to be that. So again, it's not always, we may provide them with the information, but it doesn't change, you know, things are not exactly, you know, it's very difficult to speak about things than to live these things, you know.
So they would agree even if the condition is not in their favor, huh?
Yeah.
But
So that's something.
But maybe to make the contacts clear about their duties and their rights. So if they are going to sign on this, they know what they are going to face.
Maybe, but we explained, as I said, we've explained to them exactly what are the terms of their employment. But it wasn't up to their
but explaining,
their
like, if you
do you think the role of the consulate can be like helping or as a mitigant?
You know what, there's one thing that while we're speaking now, lack of diplomatic mission here in Jordan is an issue, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so it can be like to mention this.
Lack of diplomatic mission.
Yes.
So diplomatic presence is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm also saying that it doesn't mean that it would solve the problems, but it may contribute to solving issues.
Having this channel between the two governments can be something.
Yeah. There is one important thing that I see really missing when we speak about rights of workers here, is that I'm really sorry to say it, but even, you know, the ILO has been working for years here in Jordan. And we've been working closely with the government about social dialogue. But in the recent years, I can't say it's not, but I think that there is no proper dialogue taking place between the constituents.
That's right.
Again, I'm speaking to my, you know, Sunita may say something, Muhammad may say, and that's at least what I feel.
You're right, totally right. Yeah, totally right.
So the constituents, you mean ILO and government?
No, not the ILO, but I mean a proper social dialogue between the constituents. So between the
workers,
between employers, between trade unions or workers, at least.
Yeah. You know why? So actually, I'm sorry to say that, but there is 2 points here. Not believing in the social dialogue and don't have the technical ways to use in the social dialogue. I don't believe that a government so interested in the social dialogue in the certain time. And unfortunately, the unions, they need more educated about the concept of social dialogue and how to run this and how this is important. I'm not talking about the general factors, but I'm talking about like some unions, they don't have enough idea about what the social dialogue would lead to. This is the reason, I believe. Dawood, the last thing before I leave, because I have another commitment actually at 1 p.m. I would like to go to bilateral agreements. Don't you think that if we can involve the worker representatives as a part of the bilateral agreements?
Yeah, it can be a control. Yeah, it can be among the controls. You're right.
Yes, yes, yes.
And maybe I believe before you go, Mr. Mohammed, maybe if we need to address this in the media, to make it clear, to tell the story about them, make it clear for the public opinion, it can be like kind of mitigants. What do you think?
Yes, 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 yes. I agree.
So, don't you think like addressing the media about these cases can be helpful?
It will be so helpful as a mitigant, actually.
As a mitigant?
Maybe, I'm not sure about the impact, but maybe. Just to mention something about social dialogue, sometimes it's not about capacity building, Muhammad. Sometimes it's about willingness or not.
Yes,
not all the time it's capacity building.
Exactly. You put your finger on the spot, actually, the willingness. Yeah. Maybe I don't have the word, but yes, you're right. You're right. And this for most of the parties, actually, not just the government.
It is sad. So we need to add like having like representative of the workers among the bilateral agreement, right? I believe we had to put it there.
What do you think?
You have it? We need to add like bilateral agreement, including workers
representative, just to monitoring the and to add the idea about the decent work conditions.
Yep.
May I leave now, Mr. Dawood?
Thank you for your time. It was so pleasure having you.
Thank you. I'm so sorry.
Really, we're so thrilled to have you among us and share your knowledge about this.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Anyway, we have like 3 minutes before this still. Any more input on this?
We have Suha and Sunita.
Sunita.
Yeah, in labor law, there are certain areas are not, certain things are not clearly defined. It was left to the interpretation of the people, whoever interpreting it. So that ambiguity must not be there. Maybe this is in the controllers. The ambiguity in the labor law needs to be removed, and it should be make it more clear. For example, the health facilities for the migrant workers. For saying the sake of saying for migrant workers, the collective bargaining agreement, which is again built on based on the labor law, which says that migrant workers have access to health and it's employer's responsibility. But then it's not clearly like under which conditions, what does exactly it mean, what kind of help, what all that medical support includes. Those things are not clearly mentioned. So that ambiguity is used by employers to deny workers' rights, workers' medical needs. And I was also just thinking that see, the governments, national governments, not encouraging social dialogue, not committing to the social dialogue is not unique to Jordan. This is happening all across. Yes. Even in the South Asian countries, on the name of labor law reforms, whatever is happening on the name of labor law reforms is actually hitting on workers hard. There is no commitment for tripartism. There is no commitment for social dialogue. So this is like how do we look at it in a global context, not only Jordan as a unique in this case? I'm just thinking loud.
Yeah, that's what we are working on, Sunita. We are taking this from Jordan and from other countries and to build this kind of awareness about this case. And as you said, it is everywhere, not just in Jordan. So I believe if there's nothing to add, we can go back to the main.
Can I ask just one thing before?
Please go ahead.
Sorry, I should have brought this up. Yesterday, we had a very short discussion around recruitment agents and whether in the garment sector they play a role or not. Because in the Lebanon workshop, recruitment agents were talked about a lot. But here,
yes,
is there anything that we can say about recruitment agents? The invisible recruitment agents in sending countries, in origin countries?
Sunita,
Suha.
In sending countries?
Yes, the origin countries.
Yeah.
Okay, can we stop the recording, Sausan?
Okay. Do you want to say this later? Because if I stop the recording now, I get in trouble. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Technical issues.
Regarding the recruit.
Okay, I can stop the recording. One second. I have to stop sharing as well. I can pause.
كمان متنوعة.
صحيح.
وكمان عملي أكثر من إنه نظري، يعني هذا I think بيعطي مجال لكل واحد يحكي عن خبرته مش عن شو يعني الحبر على الورق شو بيقول.
صحيح.
Anyway,
علي هلا بدنا نطلب من كل مجموعة تختار حدا يحكي باسمه ليقدم المشروع وبنرجع بنعمل.
يعني أنا مضطر إني أغادر لأني عندي اجتماع ثاني.
عذبناك، شكرا كثير لمشاركتك، كانت مشاركة قيمة جدا لأنه فعلا اطلعنا على وجهة نظر بهمنا نعرفها ونكون على بينة منها. كمان مثل ما ذكرت عليا قبل انه نحن بنرجع بنبلغكم بالنتائج اللي طلعت والاشياء اللي حنشاركها، هيك بكون عندكم فكره عنها. شكرا كثير.
كل الشكر استاذ داوود.
شكرا استاذ فايز.
شكرا كثير.
اوكي.
جروب بحب يبلش ولا بتحبي
هلا so now each group will nominate someone to explain to us their causal model, the system of causality which they have developed through the sessions in a recap. Okay.
بلش بجروب 1.
عليا. صباح الخير، معك فاليري، أنا المترجمة.
فاليري ولا رانيا؟
No, I will be taking over هلا for 30 minutes and then Rania will be back.
Okay, no problem.
بس
no problem. طيب احنا بس بدنا نعمل ريكاب سريع، يعني maybe لو 15 دقائق لكل جروب.
اوكي،
بكون تمام.
كيف بدك يعني انه وقف الشخص كيف يعني؟
لا نحن هلا كل جروب بدها تنسب شخص يعطي ريكاب سريع على الشغل اللي عمله، وكل جمله او جملتين بنوقف حتى تقدري تترجمي.
ايه definitely no problem، بس بليز اعلميهم بهذا الموضوع حتى no one would talk at length.
الكل سامعك.
اوكي hello everyone.
هاي.
اوكي طيب، بدي اطلب من المجموعه الاولى انه ينسبوا حدا يحكي باسم المجموعه.
عليا بس اذا فيك بس تقري الشات، بس مشان بوستت لانه عم جرب اكتبهم كلهم، بس في بوستت كانه ناقص على اللينك.
I'll go through it again. Okay, بس هلا for now should we nominate someone? ما بعرف، بدي اطلب من يزن، شو رايك تعطي ريكاب سريع؟
أنا أقل شخص خبير كنت في الجلسة اللي تختاروني أنا، لأنه الأستاذ
طيب.
فايز ورانيا كانوا أكثر اثنين لهم حصة في النقاش، كان أوفى لو واحد منهم.
مو مشكلة. إذا بدك تعتذر بطلب من ميرفت يعني I'm sorry أنا حطيتك on the spot، بس يعني
لأنه أنا مش أكفأ شخص بالمجموعة كنت إني أتحدث عن النقاط.
no problem. خلي مين ميرفت؟
عليا. سوري.
ميرفت؟
هل أنت كنت تسجلي النقاط تكتبي؟
طيب خلص خليني أنا اللي أعطي ريكاب سريع، بس خليني أعمل شير سكرين. أوكي. One second.
Ali, would you like me now to interpret this recap that you بدك نترجم الريكاب هلا؟
Yes. خليني أبلش. sorry. خليني أبلش بالبداية. زي ما حكينا يعني بدأنا بالدرايفرز وراء قرار السفر. سوسن خلي ميوت لعندك بليز، عم يعمل صدى. thank you. اوكي. اوكي احنا حكينا انه في عنا الطموح والحاجة الى ترك الظروف القائمة.
Okay, so we said
خلينا أعد كافة الدوافع بشكل عام، وبعدين فيكي بجوز لو بتعطي نبذة سريعة عن اللي بحكيه. أوكي، إحنا حكينا إنه في دوافع لها علاقة بالطموح والرغبة في تحسين الأوضاع الاقتصادية. دافع ممكن يكون وراءه اللي هي الحاجة أو العوامل الاقتصادية اللي طبعا بتفرز معاها معدلات بطالة مرتفعة، وضع اقتصادي سيء، من هاي الأمور اللي بتخلي الناس تاخذ قرار السفر. في كمان البحث عن ملجأ بدول أخرى، خصوصي بالدول اللي بتتعرض لأزمات بشكل مستمر. الحالة الأمنية في البلدان اللي بتكون خصوصا اللي بيكون فيها اضطرابات داخلية بتدفع الأشخاص إنه يتركوا البلد. وطبعا اللي بده يترك البلد بيكون بالأساس بده يدور على شغل، يعني بالنهاية رح يكون economic migrant. وطبعا واحدة من الأمور اللي وجدنا إنها بتكون دافع للأفراد إنهم يجوا على الأردن هو نوعا ما الاستقرار الاقتصادي والأمني بالأردن.
Okay. So among the main drivers for traveling is first there is of course ambition, and the second driver as well is, other than ambition, is the interest or the will in order to improve the situation, actually the economic situation, and the need, of course, to having better economic stability, because the current economic crisis actually are leading to higher rates of unemployment, and the exacerbated economic situation as well drives people to take the decision to travel, either for search of shelter, especially countries that are facing continuous crises, be it security crises, economic crises, or others. This drives them to seek shelter in more stable countries, but in the end, mainly these migrants are economic migrants, and the driver for individuals to come back to Jordan perhaps is the security stability, economic stability in Jordan.
بعدين انتقلنا للمحفزات اللي هي بالأخير يعني هي بتكون خلف القرار بالسفر. يعني أحيانا بيكون الإنسان عنده دوافع كثير، ولكن اللي بيحفزه إنه يقوم ويتحرك هي المحفزات اللي حطيناها هون. مسحة سريعة عليهم، اللي هي يعني لنقول معاملة أفضل للعمالة في الأردن مقارنة مثلا بوضع العمالة في الخليج. الاتفاقيات الثنائية والاتفاقيات الثلاثية وغيرها اللي بتربط الأردن بهذيك الدول. سهولة تحويل الرواتب، يعني إحنا عندنا قوانين بتخول العمالة إنها تحول كافة الراتب، يعني ما بتحط نسبة معينة عليها. السمعة الجيدة يعني بشكل عام للأردن وقدرتها على ضبط مسائل الأجور والحوافز. الأصدقاء لأنه بيصبح بالأخير لهم شبكات موجودة بالأردن وشبكات موجودة بالدول المرسلة، فتصبح يعني خصوصا في السيركيولار مايجريشن أو بالهجرة الدائرية. البيئة التشريعية اللي بالأردن نوعا ما تعتبر قوية، يعني القوانين بالأردن مقارنة بدول الجوار تعتبر قوية. في عنا لما العاملات بعض منهم بيسمعوا عن تجارب عاملات أخريات وإنه كيف قدروا يحسنوا ظروفهم المادية وكيف قدروا يتجاوزوا مشاكل الفقر، أو الوحدة فيهم مثلا إنها قدرت تتزوج، فهذا بيخليها يعني عندها حافز إنها تطلع من بلدها وتخوض التجربة وإن كان فيها مخاطرة. وكمان في بعض الحالات اللي كانت تحكي عنها زميلتنا رانيا، هي بتعمل بحث للماجستير تبعها، وكانت بتحكي إنه في استبيان أجروه وجدوا إنه يعني من 300 وإشي حالة 7 حالات وضعوا إنه الحافز تبع السفر تبعهم كان مرتبط بالرغبة في إيجاد شريك للحياة، وبالتالي هن بالقرية اللي هن فيها ما في أعداد كبيرة، لذلك وجدوا من المناسب أن يسافروا طبعا لغايات العمل. وفي العملة القوية للأردن اللي بتخلي لما يعني تحول سعر الصرف بخلي إنه مجدي ماديا إنهم ياخذوا قرار السفر وإن كان في مخاطرة بالطريق.
Okay, so with regards to the triggers that might, of course, behind decision to travel, there are many triggers that would trigger someone or drive someone in order to move and to travel. The main triggers that we have mentioned are, of course, the better treatment of workers in Jordan compared to treatment of the same workers in GCC countries, the bilateral or trilateral agreements that are signed between Jordan and these countries, of course, the ease of transferring their salaries in Jordan. In Jordan, there are very strong legislations and laws that would allow workers to transfer their salaries without any cuts taken from these salaries. The good reputation of Jordan, also the good salaries, the incentives are linked as well with work and salaries, network of friends in Jordan. All of this is related to circular migration, and as well as the in Jordan there are strong legislations in Jordan compared to neighboring countries, and these workers as well heard from the experiences of other workers who have traveled and who are able to improve their economic situation, who are able to overcome poverty. Also, this is a trigger for traveling, and many of them are also aspiring to enter into new experiences despite having certain risks. Rania also mentioned some interesting points, and Rania is of course working on her master's, and she talked about a survey that included a sample of 300 plus cases. Some of these cases, 7, I think you said 7 of these cases said that the main trigger for traveling is to find a life partner, especially if they're living in villages or areas whereby the male demographic is there's no large number of male demographics as well, and and oh sorry, and the strong currency in Jordan and the exchange rate as well.
فإحنا وجدنا يعني هلأ في الحديث عن العواقب إيش ممكن إنه ينجم عن عامل الخطر، إنه العاملات تقع ضحية انتهاكات يعني لوكالات التوظيف مثل العمل الاستعبادي، طبعا انتهاكات تشمل كافة حقوق العامل، يعني ما ممكن نعمل ضوابط على هاي المسألة. التأثير السلبي على سمعة البلد، يعني ممكن تكون إحدى عواقب يعني المخاطرات اللي بتتعرض لها العاملات بيأثر سلبا على سمعة البلد المستقبلي وسمعة البلد المرسلة. في عنا يعني من ما يترتب على قرار أو لنقول يعني الريسك أو المخاطرة العالية اللي بتتعرض لها العاملات، من الأمور اللي لازم ننظر إلها هي محدودية القدرة لدى السلطات الأردنية على التأثير في السلطات في الدول المرسلة. في عنا مثلا يعني من العواقب تبعتها هي زيادة مسائل الانتحال وتزوير الأوراق والثبوتيات الرسمية، وهذا طبعا بيؤدي إلى يعني زي ما نقول عامل المضاعف على يعني بضاعف مسائل الخطورة اللي بتتعرض لها العاملات. في يعني من الأمور اللي كمان في مشكلة اللي هي مسألة العزلة اللي بتتعرض لها العاملة، خصوصا مثلا في المنازل. هاي من ال يعني إذا ثبت أن أوراقها مش رسمية وكذا، ممكن يكون في عندها مشكلة في التواصل مع السلطات. كمان جهلها بيؤدي إلى زيادة عزلتها في بيئة العمل. في عنا طبعا شيء له علاقة بمسائل إنفاذ القانون، يعني خصوصا فيما يتعلق في محدودية الموارد لدى الدولة الأردنية، بتخليها تحاول إنها تلاقي أولويات، وبالتالي عدم قدرتها على تغطية كافة الجوانب. لكن من الكونسيكونسز أو العواقب الإيجابية للمخاطر اللي تتعرض لها العاملات هو إنه مع الوقت تحسنت البيئة التشريعية في الأردن بسبب تغطية مسائل المخاطرة تبعت العاملات.
All right, with regards to the consequences, we found out that some of the risk factors include violations against these women workers by recruitment agencies, such as a certain form of slavery, and this will actually negatively impact the reputation of the country, be it the country of origin or the country of destination, the high risks and that the workers face, and the limited ability or capacity of Jordanian authorities to influence other authorities with regards to the violations that are faced by these workers. Also, some of the negative consequences is forging identification papers and documents. This subjects the workers to additional risks as well. The isolation that the female workers or women workers face, especially domestic workers in the houses, especially if their documentation is not official or not legal, their papers are illegal as well, and the ignorance of these workers of their rights or how to proceed, what are the measures that should be taken by them. This increases their isolation in the work environment. On the matter of law enforcement, as we know that Jordan has limited resources, and there are limited resources in Jordan, and there's an inability to cover all aspects regarding law enforcement. With regards to the positive consequences, today we see in Jordan there is a bolstering or promotion of the legislative environment as a regard of the threats that were determined by the authorities. Thank you.
Okay, so sorry، ما بعرف يطلع على السكرين عندكم عم تطلع ولا أنا؟
لا، طالعة سكرين شير.
اوكي تمام. اوكي، سو من الضوابط على المسائل هاي او مسألة المخاطر التي تتعرض لها العاملات في سفرها إلى الأردن للعمل، اللي هي يعني المسائل اللي لها علاقة ب يعني كيف ممكن نضبط المسألة بحيث إنه نمنع حدوثها أو نأثر في احتمالية حدوثها، اللي هي الدعم التقني اللي الموجود اللي يدعم عمل السلطات. وهذا بنقصد فيه يعني كافة الأجهزة اللي اعتمدت مثلا الأتمتة في عملها، بحيث إنه يكون في جمع للبيانات بشكل أفضل، وطبعا وجود منصات اللي بتخلي تواصل العاملات مع يعني مع السلطات بيكون أحسن، تقديم الشكاوى بيكون قد يكون أحسن، وطبعا الدعم التقني له علاقة بجمع البيانات بشكل أفضل وفرزها بطريقة أفضل حتى نقدر نفهم المشكلة بشكل أفضل. كمان من الضوابط لمسألة الانتهاكات اللي بتصير للعاملات هو تعزيز الاتفاقيات الثنائية والثلاثية ومتعددة الأطراف بين الدول المرسلة والمستقبلة، يعني والعمل سوية ما بين السلطات على مواجهة أي خطر ممكن أن تتعرض له العاملات. المسائل يعني الأورينتيشن للعاملة اللي هي رفع مستوى دراية العاملات أو رفع مستوى فهم العاملات لحقوقهم. هذه كمان من النقاط اللي كتير يعني ممكن أنها تضبط مسألة الانتهاكات اللي بتصير لهم. وجود نظام موحد للسيطرة أو لمراقبة مسائل الهجرة في الأردن، كمان هذا يعني من شأنه أن يضبط عملية الانتهاكات اللي بتصير. نقطة كمان حكينا فيها اللي هي يعني الأنظمة العقابية أو تعزيز لنقول قوانين العقوبات اللي بتكون من شأن أن تكون رادعة لأي حدا يعني تسول له نفسه بانتهاك حقوق العاملات. التعاون ما بين الأقاليم، لنقول نحن ما عم نحكي فقط عن طريق الاتفاقيات الثنائية، ولكن أيضا على مستوى المجتمع المدني مثلا أو على مستوى الصحافة ما بين الدول المرسلة وما بين الدول المستقبلة، بحيث أن يكون بينها عمل مشترك، وحتى فيما يتعلق في اختيار الأولويات اللي بتحتاجها. الحث على السيطرة على وكالات التوظيف وكذلك حركة العاملات، بمعنى يعني فرض رقابة أقوى وأفضل على مكاتب الاستقدام اللي بتستخدم العمال بشكل كبير، وتكون هي القناة الوحيدة الرسمية اللي يعني اللي من خلالها ممكن نضبط القنوات السفر للعمال، بحيث بيسهل حتى على السلطات إنها تضبط المسألة. وطبعا ما بعرف يعني زيادة حكينا الأمور العقابية اللي ممكن إنها تشدد العقاب على أي انتهاكات بحيث تكون رادعة.
With regarding to controlling the travel of workers to Jordan, of course, workers who are seeking work. We have in the beginning, of course, these controls are very important in order to prevent violations or to eradicate violations when they happen or before they happen. Among the major things is to gather data and to have platforms that allow the workers, domestic workers, to communicate with law enforcement agency, to present grievances as well, and there are existing technical support systems to support the work of the law enforcement, to provide technical as well as support in order to screen and to gather data in order to put in place better controls and to put an end to violations, to promote bi- and multilateral agreements between sending and receiving countries, which include ways to combat violations, raising awareness among the domestic workers about their rights, orientations at the sending country to make sure the workers have not been deceived or given false information. Having unified system to control immigration to Jordan as well, punitive systems to reduce the possibility of violation and deception, and to inter-country and inter-regional cooperations to combat violations that happen throughout the corridors, and as well to promote laws, penal codes as well to deter violations. And working between the countries to determine as well priorities, increase punitive measures to prevent exploitation of workers, and to exert control over recruitment agencies as well as over the movement of workers from one country to the other. And this facilitates cooperation between authorities.
عظيم. And then بالنهاية بآخر شيء اللي هي مسألة لنقول الميتيجنس أو المخففات لحدية الانتهاكات اللي بتصير، اللي هي حطيناها هون باللون البيتشي.
I just sorry بس I'm gonna interrupt just to be mindful إنه you have a couple minutes بس لنعطي وقت لتاني جروب.
Yes. So only بشكل يعني بسريع احنا already we've put it in English and Arabic، يعني بيسهل أكتر إنه نرجع لها. بس يعني بشكل سريع من الأمور اللي بتخفف حدة الانتهاكات هو وجود مجتمع مدني ناشط، مش بس بيوفر المعلومات عن المشكلة، ولكن أيضا بيقدم خدمات مثل القانونية اللي ممكن إنها تدعم العمال وتعينهم على إنهم يحصلوا حقوقهم. بعض لحظة further انه وجود اتمته بشكل اكبر، بحيث يعني خصوصي من بعد ازمه الوباء العالمي صار في انتقال اكثر للعمل اونلاين، وهذا بيعزز المنصات وبيخليها اكثر ربطا ما بين العمال وما بين السلطات. تعزيز التعاون الإعلامي ما بين الدول المرسلة والدول المستقبلة، لأنه هذا بيؤدي إلى التغطية، طبعا له علاقة بالدعم والمؤازرة والأدفوكسي. تحسين عمليات التفتيش، طبعا وإذا في مجال زيادة عدد مفتشي العمل اللي ممكن إنهم يغطوا كافة القطاعات في كافة محافظات الأردن. والتشريعات اللي بتحمي العمال أكيد يعني بضل في دائما الحاجة إلى مراجعة التشريعات والنظر فيها. في يعني من النقط كمان كتير مهمة اللي هي تعزيز مجتمعات العمال، بحيث كمان يعني تعزيزهم مش بس أعطيهم مجال إنهم يجتمعوا، كمان أعطيهم أريحية أكثر إنهم يتعاطوا مع السلطات، وإنه هن يكونوا جزء فاعل من حماية أنفسهم. تحسين إلمام العامل بحقه، ومش بس بحقه، كمان يعني أي الجهات اللي بيقدر يتوجه إلها في حال شعر إنه هنالك انتهاك لحقه أو ممكن لحق زميله. الحث بيئات العمل وخصوصا في المصانع على أنه يكون عندها آليات تظلم خاصة فيها عدا عن المنصات الحكومية، بحيث مش بس يعني توفر قناة ما بين العامل والإدارة، ولكن أيضا تجمع المعلومات وبتوفر لنا بالضبط معلومات واضحة وين نقاط الخلل وين المشاكل. يعني من النقاط اللي كمان تم طرحها إنه توفير بيانات أكثر عن المشاكل، يعني كل نقطة أكيد هي بحر من المعلومات بتحتاجها، كمان تسهيل وصول للمعلومات. وبالنهاية يعني تحسين الأوضاع الاقتصادية للدول المرسلة بحيث تخف يعني حالة الطارئة اللي العامل بياخد فيها القرار وبيترك فيها بلده. لما بيكون الأوضاع مش يعني الأوضاع الاقتصادية ما بتكون بهالقسوة هاي، بيكون بجوز عنده شوي مجال يقعد ويفكر ويحسبها أكتر. فهذا بشكل عام المخففات أو الميتيجنز. فاليري؟
Okay, sorry. Yeah, لأنه راحت السكرين من عندي حتى. With regards to the mitigants, they are here on the screen as we see in the peachy color. What can actually mitigate the severity of violation are, for example, to have an active civil society, international organizations that support the workers in Jordan, and provide more information about the topic. These civil society organizations as well can provide legal assistance to these workers, to have improved automation of support systems, which makes it easy to collect data, to collect information about a certain violation, about a certain topic, and enhance the understanding of these violations and the certain topics, improve collaboration between media in sending and receiving countries in order to improve accountability, to have legislations that protect migrant workers, and to have as well to strengthen worker communities in the receiving countries, to improve workers' literacy and raise their awareness about their rights, where to go in case of violation, in case they are exploited, establish grievance mechanisms that to allow workers to contact the authorities and to submit their grievances and complaints, enhance knowledge of employers about workers' rights, and in the end, have easy access to information, give workers more data about their rights as well, and about how to present complaints and grievances, and perhaps improve an improved economic situation in the sending countries as well might drive these workers to think twice before having to leave their countries.
I think we've already taken 4 minutes extra, so Dawood, please, we can move to, I think, to the other group. I can stop sharing.
Yes, you can. Thank you.
Okay.
So next group, الفريق الثاني مين بده يقدم منه؟
We have We have Suha and Sunita.
Suha?
Would one of you like to present, please? I can share my screen.
No, I won't be able to present. Sorry, Sauzan. I'll ask Suha.
Okay.
Okay.
Suha?
Suha?
Just a second. Suha could have stepped out of the room.
Or Sunita, you can present only the parts maybe which have not been covered or where you think we are different in our way of thinking until Suha comes. Oh.
Actually, I don't have my specs. Can you make the screen little bigger?
Yes.
I'm not able to see the...
Sure. Is this okay?
Yeah, this is okay. So basically, the group discussed about various driving factors for the migration for the women workers from South Asia to Jordan. So there are few areas which were identified, like climate change is understood as one of the reason, and then the countries of origin are not able to provide livelihood opportunities for women. So that is the reason which is actually pushing workers. It's like driving workers to opt for migration. And also the conflict zones and the wars which are happening in the in different regions, also pushing people out of the region and opt for migration. And then there are also other inhuman manifestations such as discrimination and racial discrimination, religious persecution. These are also some of the examples for driving people for migration. And then there is actually the first one of the major factor which identified when we talk to the women workers is that aspiration for better life and have a better livelihood opportunities, so that they can facilitate the family, their children to have a better life and have access to education. That is the aspiration which is actually making people, driving people for migration. And there is also one more reason that as a group we felt that in some of these in most of these sending in the countries of origin, earlier there used to be a concept of welfare state, where state used to take certain responsibilities of people like health, education, transport, and basic amenities need to be subsidized. People used to have a decent life with whatever the incomes they are having. But increasingly, because of the privatization, the state expenditure on social sector has come down. So people are actually struggling to meet health needs, educational needs of the families. That is also driving them to opt for migration, so that they can give a better, they can take care of their life cost in the countries of origin. And lack of social protection systems also, it is also adding to the one of the driving forces, migration. There is also one of our colleague mentioned about migration, and again the migrant workers who returned, again they are migrating. But the reason what she was found, the reason what she felt is that there is a certain stereotypes and there is some stigma attached to the women workers who migrate to overseas and come back. So there's some amount of character assassination. They were seen as not very welcomeable to their own societies. So as no option, they again choose to remigrate. the people who come migrate and again re-migrate. That is a driving force for their migration. There is also one displacement related issues, such as the agricultural infrastructure is not given much priority by the national governments. There is a climate change, there is a shortage of rains, and agriculture is not doing well. That is the reason people are migrating. There is also land acquisition for mining, and people are deprived of livelihood opportunities, and people are deprived of forest rights. So these things are also pushing people to actively look for, out of desperation, look for opportunities. So that is also acting as a major force for opting for migration. There is also one major factor is also, this is also came out very clearly in different studies. Some section of the women opt migration. It's not actually an option. It's they are forced to migrate to escape from the violence that is happening within their communities and within their families. Most of the South Asian societies have the same cultural practices, same traditions, and same way of treatment for women. So there's to escape from some amount of patriarchy, to escape from the violence and harassment, women also driven towards migration. So these are the basically forces which are driving women in South Asia towards migration. But this is only few of them listed out. We understand there are many more. And what are the triggers?
Do you want me to translate this?
No need. I think we all speak English in this group now.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm being very fast, right?
No, please proceed. That's why I didn't stop you, because I noticed everyone speaks English. So proceed.
And then
please.
there are also triggers like recent work, but actually this connection, I personally did not understand this trigger. What is recent work was placed here, but maybe another group member can explain this. And the striving for equality, gender equality, like escaping from there is some of the South Asian countries have certain practices like caste discrimination, racial. This is another form of racial discrimination, which escape from to strive for equality, to come out of gender oppression. There is this also acts as a trigger for migration. And children's education is one of the major issue which came out, that children education and healthcare, these are the major things which actually push people to work as a trigger for people to look at migration as a viable option. And there is also an opinion expressed that the recruitment cost in government is lower than domestic sector. And then there's also the trigger for migration is also to escape from the forced labor, forced marriage, to escape domestic violence. Actually, sometimes we were not confused, but we were actually discussing about whether it is a driving force or it is actually a trigger. So there is a linkage between driving forces and trigger. Sometimes some things appear as a driving force, but it can be a trigger also. It is a triggering factor also. Something which appears as a triggering factor, actually a driving force. So this is what we were discussing. Then can you go down? We'll go to the consequences. And also there is indebtedness and reputation issues. These are also factors. And as a result of these driving forces and these triggers behind the migration, what are the consequences? The consequences are, they are manifested at different levels. There are certain things which are have a larger consequences. For example, because of South Asian women migrating in large scale and catering to the needs of supply chains and catering to the global markets, there's a women workforce, a cheap supply of workforce. Constantly there is a workforce is available, cheap supply of work is available. That is one of the major consequences. So all the global supply chains are thriving on this factor, thriving on the factor that there is a cheap supply of global labor force. And then there are also what we were discussing is that there are also certain positive consequences or also negative consequences. When we talk about positive consequences, we see the women liberating out of community violence or family violence, the women exercising their some amount of autonomy, being away from the family and communities, and women earning, having and building some economic assets. They will build a house back home. They will get their children educated back home. So these are the positive stories of migration. But on the other side, there is also exploitation of because of this migration, which is facilitated. There's exploitation of cheap labor. There is a wage theft. There is forced labor. There's a restricted mobility for people who migrate. And then there are also consequences of perpetually keeping certain workforce working for long working hours, poor health conditions, and there are certain occupational health disorders which develop because of people working for long hours, and poverty wages, high recruitment throughout the process, violence and physical and sexual verbal abuses. These are the things that consequences of that's what we discussed about consequences at different levels. At international level, globally, what is the consequences? At the national level, what is the consequences at the national level, and what are the consequences for the individual migrant workers, their lives and their families and their communities? Yeah, I'll stop here.
Okay, so I think this is a good sorry, can you see me? I think this is a good recap of what we have done, and if anything, it shows exactly how kind of a big web of system of causality there is behind this, the risk of migration from South Asia to Jordan. And I think this only shows us how much we need to study more about this topic and try to understand it more, and hopefully if we can reduce this risk factor happening. So I think this concludes it. I want to give the chance to my colleagues, to Sausan and Dawood, if they want to give just a brush over the day perhaps, or the findings.
Well, it was so fruitful for me, as I see. Maybe if there's other comments about each group, but I see is less representative of the first group here.
Yes.
So if there's anything to add, any kind of ideas you want to share with us, it would be great. But it was fruitful. We have some insights now about what's going on in Jordan regarding this case. So Sausan, you have anything to add?
No, I think it's fascinating, actually. It's very, the information, most of it is really new for me. So it's great that it came out. There are also overlaps between Group 2 and Group 1. Group 1 clearly had more, but yeah, and Group 2, actually, we had a very interesting discussion as we were filling in the squares. So yeah, thank you so much.
I can see some similarity and some other dimension in the other groups. So.
There's, it's been interesting that obviously there are some similarities between the two, but even the conversations or the tangents that are gone off in each group is different. So that's been really interesting to listen to. So hatta seeing the similarities and differences, but also the similarities and differences with migrant workers and the issues faced in Lebanon has been very interesting to compare and contrast. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Sunita, you have anything else to add? Tanzila?
Oh, I think only one point actually we missed in the, I was just thinking one point we missed in consequences thing. I was just thinking that migrant workers coming in huge number to work in Jordan, deprived of their family life, deprived of their reproductive life, deprived of their sexual lives, deprived of so many things, no, that the cost of the mental cost that they pay to cater to the needs of supply chain, nobody have to, no one actually capture that. How much, what is the cost and what is the benefit they are getting? When somebody make that cost and benefit analysis, who is paying cost for whose benefits, actually that was missing. That is a major
You can
thing.
add it. I think Dawood can add it.
Yes, I'm taking it. Cost and benefits.
So you're saying like the mental costs, and يعني, so more thinking about the psychological impact or the mental health aspect.
No, it's not about mental health aspect. It's about, see, we are by coming to Jordan, these huge migrant workers are deprived of their family life, their reproductive life. They cannot have exercise their sexual rights. So there are so many things they sacrifice. For those 125 Jordanian dinar as a wage, they sacrifice so much on the human side. These are natural things which happen to a human being to exercise all these rights, no, like being with the family. After all, what is life at the end of the day? Being with the family, taking care, looking at your family and growing up, looking at your children growing up. All those things, they pay that cost, and we never think about that cost, how much they are sacrificing to cater to the supply chain needs.
Yes, I also agree this with Sunita. It's a huge loss, and we don't even recognize it. Even we don't want to recognize it. I mean, we make them recognize this. Yeah, I just want to add one point that is important from Bangladeshi side, that we respect our migrant workers as because of their remittance, our economy is surviving. So it is also important for us. It is also consequences in that sense that we are economically stable for their contribution. Yeah.
So you mean to say the vulnerability of your economy is high towards any, or maybe the sensitivity of the economy is high towards these remittances?
No, our economies, they are supporting our economy very well. Even if in the pandemic time, our remittance, we survive because of the remittance, because of their contribution.
So I think so. The economies are sensitive to these and perhaps dependent on these remittances as well.
Yes. Our 7%, I guess. We're Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tanzila. Thank you. So I think this concludes the day and this workshop, and hopefully we will be able, we'll write a report that is condensed, and we will try our best to include, the major highlights of the discussions, and we'll be sharing it with the larger group. Hopefully then we can maybe, get endorsements and formally submit it. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone. Thank you. It was so great having you here. So thank you for your answers.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for everybody's time. Have a good weekend.
And we are on time.
Right on time.
7 minutes ahead. Yeah.
Good day everyone.
داوود
نحن بنحكي إذا بدك
بس بدي سكرين شوتس منك.
أكيد.
Otherwise,
I'm gonna share it with you.
Yeah.
You wanna have a call later today?
We can talk later today, but for now,
Yep, I'm
screenshots
gonna
for
share it.
every piece of the
True.
puzzle.
I'm gonna share it.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.